And good day, everyone. We are back streaming again. Been putting out quite a few videos on my TikTok recently. To be honest, I've kind of stopped uploading on YouTube and just doing TikTok now. It just does so much better. So today we're going to be talking about why the ideal system for the world is one that is as against suffering as possible. That's it's the obvious thing to do, right? We should have as much safety from suffering as physically possible, because the alternative is risking children being tortured. It's risking everyone being tortured. Life shouldn't be forced to exist in cruel conditions, and we should have the biggest system possible to prevent it from happening. Okay, we've got a request already. Let's have them on. Hello.
How's it going? Thanks for
I'm
having me.
good. How are you?
Good, good. How are you?
Good. Do you have any questions?
Well, I just had a critique about this view. I've kind of seen this hopping around a little bit, but I would argue that not all forms of suffering are necessarily bad. There are
Okay.
gonna be forms of suffering that you would actually want to go through, like dependent upon what it is your goal is. So, for example, if I wanted to accomplish something that I felt was like, for example, let's say I wanted to climb Mount Everest, right? That's going to cause suffering to some degree.
Yeah, but we're not talking about stuff like that, right? That's kind of the stuff that's not important to be safe from, right?
What do you mean?
So, unless we have total extinction, there's going to be continued suffering and extreme suffering, children being tortured. We're not talking about, having a nice walk up a mountain. We should be safe from being tortured, right?
So then why, just so I'm not, and by the way, I'm not trying to be rude by asking this. I just want to know the logic here. Why don't you just unalive yourself then?
Because if I did that, then that would be doing nothing to stop suffering for others, right? That would be counterproductive.
No, I meant like all of us.
How do you mean?
Like if it was the case, let's say for example, if you had a button in front of you, you push the button, everyone unalives, you would push it?
No, so it's a good question, but we want the most thorough and vast protection from suffering possible. So even if we could, delete the world or the planet Earth, we wouldn't do it because that's not the most vast and thorough protection against suffering possible. So we need to explore, the rest of the universe and how far we can take extinction and preventing life from developing in cruel conditions.
Okay, so maybe I'm just not getting your position right. Are you saying, when you say extinction, you're not actually talking about human beings necessarily or only, you're talking about all life?
Yeah, so extinctionism is about being as against suffering and the risk of suffering as possible. It's about providing as much safety from suffering as possible for as much life as possible.
Okay, so the idea here is that as long as there is no suffering, then thing can be good.
The idea is that everyone should be safe from extreme suffering,
Right.
that we shouldn't have a system that allows or risks children to be tortured to death and horrible
And as
things like
long and
that.
as long as something isn't causing suffering, then it's okay.
Um, I would just simply say that it's okay as long as we're doing our best to provide as much safety from suffering as possible.
So, for example, I don't know. There's a movie. I don't know if you've ever seen this movie, but it's called The Island. I don't know if you've ever seen this movie called The Island. Basically, the
I
idea
have seen
here.
it, yeah.
You ever seen it with the corporation that they're like cloning people and stuff?
Yes, yeah, I've seen it.
Okay. The intent there was to keep these people. They clone them and they subdue them and keep them asleep. Later on, they realize they have to have consciousness, but the original idea was that they keep these people alive well enough that they can harvest the organs, but not alive enough that they can be conscious. So if they're not conscious and there's no suffering because they're not conscious, um, you would see nothing wrong with this, right?
Yeah,
Because there's
correct.
no suffering.
If there's definitely no suffering, then yeah.
So then, by your view, there's nothing wrong with creating human beings that aren't conscious just to harvest their organs.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think something would be wrong with that?
Yeah.
Like what?
From my view, that would be slavery
To who?
to the people that are there being used as organ machines.
But you've said that there's effectively no people there to suffer, right?
No, I'm saying from your view, because there is no consciousness,
Well,
there.
thank you for coming on. It's been an interesting chat. We're going to move to another guest now with a different topic. I think we've kind of finished that. Hello, how's it going?
Hello. I'd like to ask to understand the movement better, of course. We're
Yeah.
talking about extinction, we're talking about everything or just humans.
As much life as possible, animals, humans, and beyond Earth as well. It's actually quite likely and probable that there will be lots of life on other planets. So most suffering is going to be on other planets. So if you're going to be as against suffering as possible, then you should want animal extinction on Earth and the prevention of life developing in cruel conditions on other planets as well. And then finally, humanity can go extinct once they've done everything they can to help other life.
But suffering is only a part of life, aren't there also other parts of life? Not
I mean, there are other
exactly.
parts of life, but the thing is that suffering is so extreme that it's unacceptable, right? You wouldn't want babies being tortured to death, having their eyes pulled out while they're still alive, all sorts of these terrible things that do happen, right? If you're against
Then
child
why
abuse, then you have to be against life existing in cruel conditions.
then why don't we fight to erase those cruel conditions so that there won't be child abuse?
Yeah, because it's unrealistic to end all suffering without extinction. You would have to
So is
cure.
it's unrealistic to extinct every single
Well, not
species out there. That's
necessarily.
also
No,
unrealistic.
not necessarily. It's actually much more realistic. So the thing is, we already have euthanasia. Euthanasia already exists. We can control large animal populations already. This is something that we already do on a daily basis. Whereas preventing all suffering without euthanasia or extinction is basically magic, right?
So you're just saying because we have means of peacefully, on quotes peacefully, ending a life that we can somehow commit mass extinction, or to call it more correctly, mass genocide, because that's what it is. It's
Well, no,
genocide.
it's a different thing. Genocide is done for selfish reasons, really. So, and it's
So
not done for the sake of
selfishly,
it. It's not done for the
you're
sake
judge.
of those that get
It is.
euthanized or killed, basically.
You're using your own moral ground.
Okay, well, thank you for coming on. Extinction isn't about genocide or killing. It's most of the victims we want to help are in the future. They don't actually exist yet. Hello, how's it
Can you hear
going?
me? Yeah,
Yes.
I'm doing fine. I have an honest question. Do you believe what you're saying, or are you just saying this because it gets live views?
Yeah, no, I do believe that there should be no chance of children being abused or suffering terribly. I don't think that's a crazy opinion. And we are a real movement. You can check out our website, proextinction.com. I didn't start this movement. I simply am one activist of many. We have a website, we have lots of social media channels, we do street protests, and we're growing the movement to work towards actually achieving a suffering-free world for as much life as possible.
Interesting. I never believed that this was an actual thing. I just assumed it was like a way to grab attention online. Yeah, this is, in my opinion, it's strange, but I get where you're coming from. Um, I understand if you're trying to end like all life. It would be strange if you just end human suffering, in my opinion. I mean, it would be unfair to all other life as well. Um, The only
Yeah.
thing that I possibly disagree with is the way you're how do I say this? The way you're proposing it. You're acting as if killing things is just normal. Like it's okay to just kill living beings because you just prevent their suffering. With that opinion, I could go out and just kill people because in the end it helps them prevent suffering. You know.
Well, if you want to work towards a suffering-free world, then you have to do it in an organized and structured way. Committing self-harm or harm to others is just going to get you locked up or taken out of the game, right? If I can make videos and do peaceful activism that reaches, millions of people, that's going to do a lot more good than just random chaotic acts of violence. We have to do it in a smart way and an organized way.
See, this is completely different from my political views and my personal beliefs. Yeah, it's definitely interesting. The first time that I'm confronted with such beliefs, but
Well, the idea is simply that no one should have to suffer, no child should be abused, no animal should be abused or have to suffer terribly, and to be trapped in a life of hell-like suffering, right? To be effectively trapped in hell on earth, right? No one deserves that, and we should make sure that no one has to suffer that.
can I ask you a question, like another one?
Yeah.
Do you believe suffering can lead to something good?
Potentially. I mean, one way that we would look at it is to say that it's wrong to cause or allow suffering in the pursuit of pleasure, but it is sometimes acceptable to cause suffering in the pursuit of ending more suffering. And so that's really only when it's acceptable if it's in the pursuit of, if it's for a good reason, effectively.
So essentially, for self growth, for example, going to the gym, you're suffering during your workout, it hurts, or you're eating a certain diet. In the end, it's for a goal, a certain thing you're trying to achieve. Would you say that is selfish, or is it a reasonable thing? In order to in order to get there, it's okay to experience suffering. Like
Yeah,
what
I think
suffering
it
is okay,
makes,
and what is
yeah,
suffering
yeah,
is
I
wrong.
think, sure. There's lots of types of suffering that, the privileged experience, which helps them further their privilege, basically. But the thing is, that's not really relevant. What is relevant is that children are being tortured. They're getting cancer, they're being eaten alive. That suffering isn't going to help them. So we need to stop focusing on the privileged and start focusing on those that are suffering.
Okay, I see. This is interesting. It's completely different from my worldview. I personally wouldn't join your movement, but yeah, it's interesting meeting people like you.
Well, thank you for coming on. It's been great meeting you as well. And let's move on to our next person and some more interesting questions. Hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Okay, I have a question about the way you understand your mentality. So, when all conscious life ends, then basically nothing is going to be having an experience anymore. So, basically, the experience of time and space would basically end because no one's going to be like experiencing it anymore. I'm talking like from the point of view of like a living being, like a conscious being, right? So if suffering is something that happens to conscious beings that are having an experience within time and space, how would suffering truly end if all experience of time and space is ending? Because like within like being a conscious being, when something ends, it's because something else starts. So when all conscious life ends, then yeah, everything ended, but like it's not what suffering ending truly is in the way that I
Why?
understand it.
Why? Why not?
Because like when I think of suffering ending, it's because for suffering to end, something else needs to start, right? So
I don't think
suffering.
so. I don't think so, no.
Okay, I think that's valid. Because it does make sense. If no one is conscious, then suffering cannot happen. It's just
Exactly.
that my confusion is more like in the way that I see it, for something to truly end, something else has to start. So for suffering to truly end, we would need to continue being conscious and not be suffering anymore for suffering to truly end. If we just stop being conscious completely,
No, so
then
it doesn't really work like that, basically. If there's nothing to exist, then there is no suffering. And that is the most important thing. Our priority should be safety from suffering and safety from being trapped in suffering, right? So there's nothing worse than being trapped in extreme suffering. And as I like to point out to people, we're not talking about stubbed toes. We're talking about suffering that's so bad that it's like your brain is being put in a hydraulic press, right? The worst severities of suffering are far beyond what most people care to comprehend and think about. It's actually quite interesting. I've been researching how extreme suffering can get, and the extremities and the heights of it are quite interestingly high. Suffering can be truly incomprehensibly bad. So to be trapped in a life of that, and the worst case scenario, it's absolutely unacceptable. So safety from this should be the priority at all costs. There is nothing more important than safety, right? That should be obvious. And we shouldn't trade that safety and risk terrible suffering and tragedies befalling innocents just for the sake of pleasure. It's not worth it. It's not fair. It's not right. And it's not responsible. It's not acceptable.
yeah, I agree. I understand now. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for coming on. It's been great talking. And let's move on to yet another guest. Hello, how's it going?
Radiant.
Great.
How are you?
Good, thank you.
Yeah, so what's going to be the argument for we should end all suffering?
Do you support child abuse or animal abuse? If the answer is no.
That's a pivot.
Sorry?
That's a pivot. That's already running away. And it's also committing a straw man.
It's not really, though, because our position is simply that we should be as against suffering as possible, because the alternative is to risk child abuse and other terrible things. So that's wrong.
The problem is, though, when you're saying, like, end all suffering, you're just giving, like, a descriptive account of how, like, suffering can be. But what exactly is suffering? Like, would you say suffering is just an entailment of, like, a negative consequence imposed from an action? Or would you say that suffering is purely a mental state?
Suffering is an experience that you want to avoid. It's a bad experience. It's pain. It's discomfort. But it's easy to understand, especially if you start thinking of the worst forms of suffering, right? Then it becomes less murky and much more obvious what suffering is and how terrible it is.
Do you think suffering is dependent on mental states? As in, you have to have a mind for suffering to be true?
Not necessarily. I mean, I think you need to be able to experience. So
How
you
can
need to
you experience without a mind?
Well, just to cover the full question, I guess there's a spectrum of consciousness, and if you have a person with brain damage, for example, there's going to be lower levels of what they can experience depending on the severity of the damage, and then if it's not as severe, they might be able to experience more. But if someone's not conscious, then they're probably not experiencing anything. But we should take a better safe than sorry mentality to all types of suffering.
Do you think someone can be sentient but be in an unconscious state?
I don't know. What does it matter?
Well, do you understand what sentience is? The entailment? Do you understand the distinction between the two?
Between sentience and being in consciousness?
Consciousness.
That's a good question. Yeah, I guess I kind of feel like they're the same thing.
They're the same. Okay, so let me ask you this. When someone undergoes general anesthesia, you would agree they're not necessarily conscious, but they're still able to render some sort of experiential harm which is conducive to their well-being, correct?
Sure.
So if they're not conscious, how can this experience be actualized? Because you're saying suffering is just going to be the entailment of these mental states. You have to have a mind, it's experiential. But then I asked you the question of can suffering occur without a mind being present, which you then decided to give me a little analogy of we have types of people in altered states of consciousness, which doesn't
Okay, I'm going to be honest. I'm getting bored of that conversation. I feel like it's going nowhere, and it's just not relevant, right? It's not relevant. Hello, how's it going?
I'm alright, mate. I'm just sat in the Audi car park at the minute. So when we're talking about total extinction, are we talking like every plant, cell,
Yes.
all life?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you Christian?
No.
Are you religious of any kind?
Nope.
Okay, neither. I see it more as suffering. You know, the human brain is a very complex, thing, and I think when it comes to suffering, I think it's a human concept in the way that, say, a plant or a tree would never think about suffering. A tree doesn't think.
Well, let's not use trees, right? Let's
Okay.
use like animals or something, right?
Mhm.
I mean, animals suffer, definitely.
I guess then, I don't know, I see the world as very out of balance. Like, yeah, I will say that like there are too many humans. There's a lot we do a lot of things just for ourselves, and I would like to counteract that, but I wouldn't like to completely get rid of all life
Why
ever.
though? Like, don't you think safety is more important?
If there's no life, then safety as a concept wouldn't really exist. I don't
Well,
think.
it would. It would, because if there's no life, then there would be safety from suffering. And the worst forms of suffering, the worst form is effectively to be trapped in extreme suffering. So, yeah, like, what do you think about that?
I don't know. I see like planet Earth, as far as we know, is like in every direction for millions of light years. There is only us. And it's such a unique place. And yes, there's a lot of evil and there's a lot of suffering. But I look around. I see the trees, the grass, the animals. I think humans are a problem because we're very inherently selfish. But I don't think that, like if you look at Mars, or you look at Venus, there's no trees on Venus. There's no suffering on Venus, but there's literally nothing on Venus.
Right, but there's no child abuse, there's no cancer, right? So safety from being trapped in hell-like suffering is the most important thing. It's to allow it is cruel, it's wrong, it's unfair, it's incredibly cruel. So we should be as against suffering as possible, and the risk of it as well, because otherwise we are quite literally allowing children to be at risk of torture and worse things than that. So, the world is really too dangerous to allow life to exist in it. The absence of life in cruel conditions is a good thing. We should stop life from being forced to exist, in cruel conditions, because that is what's currently happening. So it's very cruel, it's wrong, and those that suffer should take priority. Suffering takes priority in our day-to-day life anyway. So we really just need to start scaling it up to all life.
Would you think that there would still be an immense amount of suffering if, say humans weren't on the planet? There were no humans, there was no infrastructure.
Absolutely. The worst suffering on this planet happens in nature, and completely independent of humans. Humanity existing or not existing has no impact on over 99% of suffering on this planet. So humanity as a population and our impact on the planet is actually minimal, negligible even. You have dectillions of wildlife, animals, and organisms on this planet suffering. Humanity is a speck, a drop in the ocean, basically.
I guess in a way you are. Obviously, I don't agree with getting rid of all life, but I guess in a sense you are correct in the way that it's like life existing breeds suffering, and therefore suffering will always exist as long as life exists.
Yeah.
I understand your point. I'm not fully on board with the total extinction kind of viewpoint. Look, mate, this has been a great discussion. I've just got to go. So have a nice day, man.
You too. Thank you for coming on.
No worries.
All right, let's carry on. Good conversation, indeed. I don't know why he didn't agree that, we should prioritize making sure that no child ever gets tortured ever again. But, fair enough. Moving on. Let's see who we can get on. Hello.
Okay. Yeah, hello.
How's it going?
Not too bad. So when you say total extinction, like I want to know before I start talking, what do you actually mean to understand?
Right. So it's about being as against suffering as physically possible, reducing the conditions and the chances of suffering existing as much as physically possible. So that means total extinction and prevention of life developing in cruel conditions. So it's about preventing life from existing and developing in cruel conditions.
So you want no children in mainly cruel conditions, like what, like around the world, around third world countries?
I would say that anything less than 100% safety is a cruel condition. And unfortunately, that means pretty much all life in the entire universe. There's no way to guarantee a life form won't suffer without extinction. Non-existence is the only 100% safety, basically.
So you think it will be better if no one could experience suffering rather than experience suffering?
Yeah, because, it's better to not exist than to be trapped in a hell-like life, right? To be trapped in hell, to be trapped in extreme torture, extreme suffering, agony, to where you're begging for death and then it still doesn't come. No one should have to experience that, and it really is just unacceptable. Children are experiencing that right now, today. Children are being tortured right now. They're being abused. So, we should stop this from happening.
So also, we're talking about medical, physical, like emotional abuse of all kinds. So like abuse of every standard should be eradicated, which means us as humans should also be eradicated.
Yeah, so the ideal system would be one where no life exists anywhere in the universe, and we've set it up so that we've we've done as much as we can to prevent life from ever developing ever again, basically.
So in your perfect worldview, this will be the bottom line. Like currently, right now, there'll be no more children on Earth. It'll just be this is the end of humanity from 2026 till I don't know, the next 70 years. Or so.
Realistically, even if everyone on the planet joins the movement today, or became extinctionist, we wouldn't be able to do it so quickly. We would start working towards animal extinction on Earth, and we would start working towards universe-wide extinction. The thing is, right, people say it's unrealistic, but we have quite literally billions of years to carry this out. So we can definitely reach a lot of stars in that time and a lot of habitable planets and try to prevent life from developing on them. And who knows how far we can take it? We won't know until we try. So that's all we're advocating for. We're not saying that we can definitely have galaxy-wide or universe-wide extinction. We're saying we should try and do as much as we can.
So, with your, I don't want to be anecdotal, but with your life personally, are you not having children, or do you not want to have children in the future?
So, yeah, I mean, I don't really like the idea of having children. However, our movement supports human reproduction and continuation, because if humanity went extinct, then animals would continue to suffer for billions of years. So I might have children at some point in the future. I'm not in a position where I would go and do that right like today, but some people in the movement are donating sperm to try and get more empathetic genetics out into the population. That's one way of going about it. So that's that. I mean, that's something I might do at some point. We do believe that genetics have a big role in determining whether or not you'll ever agree with extinction.
Okay, so let me get it straight. Okay, let me try just articulate what I'm trying to think. So you believe in total extinction is the right thing because you believe suffering is wrong and suffering in itself is wrong and no one should experience suffering. However, you want to have a child, may have a child, but wouldn't that child's like experience a suffering of some sort in their life?
Yeah, but you have to pick between, you have to pick the lesser evil, right? The lesser of two evils. So if we're going to achieve the total end of suffering, then yeah, we're going to have to do whatever it takes to get there. And sure, we might have to cause some suffering along the way. That's unfortunate, but it's the right thing to do, right? If it's necessary.
Okay. Would you to do your goal or this idea? Would you do it by force? Would you end suffering for the greater good by for let's say an
Yeah.
extreme, a stupid extreme? Let's say
Well,
you
I
and your
can give
group.
you a perfect example, actually. So we have a concept called the red button. And the idea is that if you pushed it, the universe would stop existing, right? So the idea is that maybe someday this technology will exist or something similar to it. But it's also a good concept to try and understand the ideas at play. So if you did push a red button, yes, you would be doing it against everyone's consent, and you would be doing it forcefully. But yes, we would absolutely do that. And if that wasn't how it went down, and we had to like take over the world and then enforce laws and stuff, yeah, we would do it absolutely. I mean, give you some examples. They fought a war to end slavery, so force has always been used for good, right? If you're not willing to use force, then those that bad actors will use it, right? So, police officers have to tackle criminals and throw them to the ground. You have to enforce laws. So, yeah, you have to use some degree of force, most likely.
Okay. Well, look, I think I've got two questions left.
Sure.
My last one is this okay? I don't. This isn't meant to be offensive, or I'm not trying to be like a gotcha.
Yeah.
But let's say for like, when the term "don't drink the Kool-Aid" came from, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels kind of like I don't want to say the word like a schmooshmide kind of nihilistic. I don't want to say the word, but cult in a way. It feels
Yeah.
very negative. Like I feel like this. I can hear like positives, but it's like worst case scenario. If I get cancer, like would I let's say if I would I push red button on myself? Would it be schmooshmide, or would I try and go for hope? I would want to go for hope, but I think maybe people in your point of view might press the red button and choose schmooshmide. if that makes sense. So it feels weirdly hopeful, but also very nihilistic at the
Ultimately,
same
it comes down to
time.
prioritizing safety and safety first. It really is as simple as that.
All right. Well, I asked my questions. Well, I'll let someone else come on, but good talking to you.
Thank you for joining us, Roddy. Yeah, appreciate your questions and your time. And let's move on to the next guest. So we have someone joining who says that they support this movement. Hello, how's it going?
This beautiful page, I think last week, and I 100% support and I understand what the movement stands for. If we could just be less emotional and look at the state of the world we're living in now, we can see that pain is felt in every sector of human life and also animal life. And I believe that I've thought about this deeply before coming across this page, that for pain to be eradicated or for there to be an end to suffering, there should be an end to all life, plant life, human life, animal life. Some people could call me being extreme or being very mean, but that is what it is, A total end to everything called life would cause a permanent cease to pain long term. So yeah, I just want to say that I'm in support. Yeah.
Great. Well, if you want to join the movement, go to proextinction.com. At the bottom of the page, there is a link to join our Discord and our WhatsApp group. There's a clickable link to the website on my profile. So you can go and click it there, read about us, read our FAQ, our manifesto, and join the movement.
I've read the
and get
manifesto.
involved.
Yeah. I've read the manifesto. I read it yesterday, and I think it's very, very well, brilliantly composed. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Yeah. Are you in our WhatsApp yet?
Yeah, I'll have to join the WhatsApp just once I drop from this box. I'll join through the website. I'll join the WhatsApp group. Yeah.
Well, that's perfect. I mean, the reason I'm doing this stream is to grow the movement, to get new activists to join the movement. So thank you for letting us know that it's working. And for anyone else, you can always contact us on our Discord. The link is at the bottom of our website, proextinction.com. It's a button. You can just press it and you'll join our WhatsApp or our Discord. So we have the buttons for both of them. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much.
How do I say your name?
Just say Ugo.
Ugo. Okay,
Yeah,
thank
Ugo,
you for coming on, Ugo.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Okay.
You too.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, it's great to see some support for the end of all suffering and the maximum prevention of suffering and child abuse and child suffering, all sorts of suffering, humans and animals. We need to be against all suffering as much as possible. That's what it's about. Hello, how's it going?
Miraculous.
Great. Do you have any questions for us today?
On your website, you promote hard determinism and atheism, right?
That's right.
Nice. So, first of all, this is an atheist movement. Thank you for that. Super helpful. Second thing, if you're a hard determinist, then you don't actually believe in choices, right?
Correct.
Right. So this movement isn't actually leading to anything beyond what's determined. So
Correct.
whether or not... Nice. So what are you doing here?
The thing is, determinism doesn't mean that you just simply stop doing what you're doing, right? It doesn't mean that you should just give up. It's just simply a way of looking at life.
Right, you're just reacting to stimuli though, right? You don't believe in choices. You don't believe in consent.
I mean, the way determinism, explains the world is that it's like a cascade of dominoes, cause and effect, right? So yeah,
I understand how determinism works, and so do you. You don't believe in choices, nor do you believe in consent, right?
I mean, I believe consent exists. Yeah, of course. I believe choices exist.
You're a hard determinist that believes in choices? What's a choice? Go ahead.
Well, I don't believe in free will. I would say a choice is where you have to make a decision. What am I going to do? Am I going to call in sick today, or am I going to go to work? That's a
Sorry,
choice, right?
what is that beyond an uncontrollable biological reaction to stimuli?
Nothing.
Nothing, right. So a choice to you is an uncontrollable biological reaction to stimuli, right?
I mean, there's a thought process, but it's still, deterministic. Yeah.
Sorry, let's clarify. Do you affirm that a choice to you is an uncontrollable biological reaction to stimuli?
I don't know. Maybe. Yeah. Sure. Why not?
Yeah, that is what you think. I'll think for you, don't worry. And so therefore, you don't believe in consent, right?
Okay. Let's say no. So
No,
do you
no, no.
want to?
Let's just say the truth, right? You, the host of this movement, don't believe in consent, right?
I believe people give consent and refuse to give consent.
Sorry, what's
It happens.
consent without choices? Go ahead.
Well, it would be just whether or not someone agreed to it, right?
Does it involve the ability to control?
What do you mean? Like, do you want to cut to the point? Cut
The
to the
point
chase?
is the point is that you're a crazy person. That's the point. You're actually fucking insane.
But that's like saying that, like, why go to school? Because you don't have free will.
Are you
Why do
aware
anything?
are you aware you're a fucking crazy person?
I was hoping you'd actually come and end up making some sort of interesting point or question there, but you didn't. You just resorted to saying I'm a crazy person. Fair enough. Hello, how's it going?
It's going well.
Great. Happy to hear it. Do you have any questions for us?
Yeah, I just wanted to start off by saying that some years ago I kind of got into, first antinatalism, which I think is kind of the first step that, most people with this frame of mind.
I did. Yep.
Yeah. And then kind of made my way over to some Ethelist forums and whatnot. And I think that with time and just more reflection on everything, I've come to kind of think that the whole sort of paradigm that you set up, obviously suffering is worse than no suffering, for sure. But to say that the goal should be to end all suffering, and that is the positive outcome, I think is kind of a category error because it is contingent on also removing all forms of experience.
Yeah, but I would
There's
say
no-
that safety comes first. It does. So yeah,
But
it
what-
does
but what
remove
is-
everything
but what is
because it's more
safety-
important.
Yeah, I understand that, but what is this notion of safety in the absence of consciousness or sentience or
Yeah,
life?
so the worst forms of suffering and the worst cases are where you'd be better off not existing, right? So that's what
It certainly
it's
felt
simple.
that way. Yeah,
I mean,
I have certainly felt that way.
I think it's undeniable that many life forms born into this world would have been better off not being born into it. I'd say that if you're going to deny that, it's a bit of a reach, and it's
But
kind
if better off in relation to what? Because I mean, well, first off, you did just say that you do believe in hard determinism, which I'm kind of undecided there. I have not
to
been
what, though?
thoroughly
Right.
convinced of. So what I'm saying is, you're saying that there are life forms that would have been better off never having lived. But if a life form has never lived, what do you mean it's better off in relation to what? Because if there's one sort of possible path that things can take, and in every life form that has existed or will exist in the future, will better off. Like I at a certain point that just started to kind of not make sense to me.
Well, the thing is, again, if you really think about the worst suffering, and you most likely have to sort of use your imagination for it, because most people don't think about what the worst suffering in this world actually looks like, and where it is and what it is. But it's too extreme to allow. I really just don't get the whole notion that we should allow hell-like suffering where you're trapped in it, and it's just insane levels of torture. Why should any child be at risk of being tortured? They shouldn't. We should be as against that happening as possible.
Yeah. No, I agree with you, but I think that the maximum possible sort of opposition to that you can take is still contingent on there being life, there being consciousness, there being a sentient being to carry out that will.
Yeah. Oh,
So,
absolutely.
like,
Yeah. I mean,
yeah. So at a certain point, I think that, I mean,
you've got to have a way
aside
to
from
do
the
it.
semantics of like, I lost my train of thought.
It does happen a lot with this kind of
Yeah. I think
philosophy.
aside from the semantics of that whole debate, the end goal, right? Just total non-existence of conscious sentient beings. I don't know if that's accomplishing anything. It is accomplishing your goal, which I do think is a noble goal. The end
Well,
of suffering.
Think
It
about
is.
it this
It
way.
is
Think about it this way.
achieving that.
Think about it this way. Earth is basically hell. Okay, so preventing life from being forced into hell is obviously a good thing, right?
Yeah.
So,
I am actually getting a phone call that I cannot not take.
Nice.
But I appreciate you having me up anyways.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. Maybe try and join another time. Okay, moving on. The queue has got quite a few people in. Let's see. D-Bull. Let's try this person. And hello.
Hey, what's up, James?
Not much, you?
Hey, yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I just came to like talk about the prompt. You're saying that total extinction is the only right thing. So there's no other good things to do, all the right things to do, because it all ends. It ends
And
all
all
suffering.
suffering. Yep.
Yeah. Um, but you're saying you're connecting like the right, like you're connecting. How do I say? You're trying to say that because there is suffering, then we ought to do something. Like, why? Where are you grounding this basis of, well, we should do something rather than not doing it?
If we care about life, then we should make sure it's safe, right? If you don't care, then you don't care.
Well,
So you're not
well,
going to
first-
have that should, that ought, right? But if you want to be a good person, if you want to do the right thing, then safety from, child abuse, safety from torture, safety from nightmares and horrors should obviously come first.
Right. So there's two issues I would have with that. So first of all, you're starting your premise with an if, right? If doesn't, like, an if is not really telling me anything. It's just you're speaking out of possible, like, of possibilities when you start saying
No,
like,
no,
if
you
we
asked,
believe.
basically why should I care? And I'm saying, if you don't care,
No, I didn't
then
ask you why you
then
should care.
fair
I asked
enough.
you. No, I said, like, why should we ought to do something rather than not? And you said, well, if we believe that life should be kept safe, and you went on. But my thing is this, right? First of all, I would say that saying an if, like beginning your premises with if, already assumes that you're already assuming in your own worldview.
I was
that
putting it into
it's
context for you
it's
to
not
make
a
it easy to
necessary.
understand.
Well, saying if means that it's not really necessary to start with that. But that's fine. My main thing is that saying that, to preserve, like, if you're saying that we should preserve life, then you're automatically, it's counterintuitive, and it's basically going against your own premise to say that we should end life, because ending life doesn't keep it safe. Like, it just destroys it.
But if what you need to be safe from is life itself, then yeah, it absolutely keeps you safe.
Well, life can. First of all, what do you mean by life exactly? Just living beings?
Well, yeah.
Okay. Well, under your worldview, why should we ought to do like? I'm still not getting an answer. Like, why should we like? You're saying it's the right thing. Like, for example, why suffering? Why should we evade suffering anyway? First of all.
Well, it's too terrible and extreme to allow. You might as well be asking, why should we make sure children don't get abused? It's just, if you need to ask these questions, then I'd say there's something wrong with you.
Are you
And
making a moral claim?
I'm appealing to common sense, really, that, just common sense and common reason that we should make sure that children are safe from being tortured. Like, if you don't agree with that, then
Well,
fine. But
I don't
that,
think. Well, first of all, because earlier you said you hold to hard determinism, so I don't know how you. When you say reason, I don't see how you'd be reasoning if everything is just computerized like hard determined. But the point is, for me, it's a bigger issue than that. It's like if you're making a moral claim,
look,
I'm pretty.
look,
I'm
people have
asking where
different
do you ground
values.
morality?
People have different values, right? And some people, sadists and narcissists, they don't care if other people suffer. But some people, some good people, they do care about suffering, and they do say that no one should have to suffer. Everyone should be safe from suffering.
Another thing is that the fact that what you just said there, right? If you're saying that people have different moral values, you already eliminated your previous statement earlier, where you said that it's just common sense. The good thing is just it's just
Well, you know
self-evident.
what? You know what? I'm fine.
Sorry,
You know what?
yeah, can I
I'll give
just
it to
finish?
you.
Can I
I'll
just
give
finish?
it to you. I'll
Thank you.
give it
Yeah,
to you. I'll concede
yeah.
that I'm appealing to people who agree that suffering and that no child should be tortured, right? No
Right. So
child should
thank you.
be
So
abused.
it's not so the good or common sense thing to do is not really self-evident, and it's actually subjective depending on different
Well,
people.
it is self-evident, really, and here's why. If you're trying to supervise the world, decide what's good, what's bad, what's right for the world, then yeah, safety is going to come first. Children not being tortured
Well,
is going to come first.
if you're giving me justification for something, that is no longer like a self-evident axiom. Like it's no longer because you're giving me justification.
Man, philosophy is just basically word salad, right? If you've ever watched Jordan Peterson try and talk for more than 5 minutes, you'll end up bashing your head into a table. Because philosophy is essentially for silly people that can't use basic words or understand basic concepts. It's literally just like mental, I don't know, it's just junk. It's just nonsense. Philosophy's never really contributed anything of value to the world. Okay, next person. They appear to be a grandma, maybe. Hello.
Hello. I was just wondering about how do you want to achieve this? Because you say it's a movement. How do you want to pull this through? Do you think you can convince a lot of people with it, or is it just like abstract?
It's not abstract. So like the anti-slavery movement, they had to fight for a long time, and they even had to go to war. They were prepared to do anything for ending the suffering that they wanted to end. So the thing is, when they managed to be successful, they didn't have majority support. And most societal changes in history have not had majority support. Most movements have existed because there wasn't majority support, but they had to fight and try and change the world and fight for what they believed was right. And so that's what it's about. Yeah, it's a controversial idea, but it's also a new idea. It's a new idea that we should try and provide safety for all life from suffering. So the movement has only just started 3 years ago, and it's growing. We've got lots of people in the movement now, and I think people are starting to wake up to the fact that we should make sure that no child gets tortured, no child suffers, and that is the most important thing. So even if it takes, 1 million years for us to grow the movement to be successful, or, whatever. We're going to be here fighting for the victims of suffering and trying to protect them.
Okay, thank you for elaborating. And I was wondering, like, what can one person themselves, might it be a female or whatever, a man or a non-binary person, what can they do and contribute to this movement on their own?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we encourage people to contribute with anything that they can. The best way to grow the movement is probably to make videos and do activism. We don't really take donations or anything like that. If someone came to us and offered loads of money, we'd probably try and find a way to use it. Sure, maybe advertise and boost our videos or something. But mostly we ask people to spread the message, grow the movement, help get us more people on board. And growing social media channels is the most effective way to do that. For example, I recently made a video on TikTok that got to 140,000 views. And, that got lots of people joining the movement and interested in it. So that's what we encourage people to do. And we're a community in this movement. We help people with activism. We teach them how to do it. We develop skills together like video editing. So it's a peaceful movement. We do meetups. We have a meetup planned in August in Nuremberg in Germany. We're going to have people from all over the world coming and participating in street protests, which will be filmed and put online. So I recently made the website for the movement, proextinction.com. There's lots of ways to develop the movement, to grow the movement, to contribute. But I would say that if you really want to help, the best way is to go to our website, proextinction.com, and at the bottom of the page is a link to join our WhatsApp group. And there you can come and talk to me and the rest of the team and see if there's anything that we can think of for how you can help.
Okay, thank you. And I was also wondering, is there also a way to contribute to not give birth to children or to nurture your animals at home?
Yeah, so nurturing your animals is probably a good thing. Yeah. So we do need humanity to continue, because if humanity goes extinct, then animals will suffer for billions of years. So unfortunately, humanity does have to continue. And yes, we support, reproducing and having children. We understand that that's going to cause a lot of suffering. However, we would say that it's a necessary evil. So, yeah.
Would you say that a lot of people from your movement are vegan people?
We do have a few vegans, yes. However, our research has shown that veganism actually causes worse suffering. And the reason for that is that vegan agriculture takes up a very, very small amount of land, whereas all of the food that's grown for animals, for livestock, and all of the space taken up for livestock, the deforestation, even things outside of the food industry like factories, data centers, mining operations, these destroy habitats basically. And essentially the amount of land and space taken for animal agriculture is approximately 5 times more land than is taken for vegan agriculture, meaning that that's preventing wild animals from existing in those spaces. And actually wild animals suffer even worse than farmed animals. If I had to choose between being a wild animal and a farmed animal, I honestly think I'd go with being a farmed animal, because you have food, you have shelter, you have some degree of safety, you have medicine, and you don't have predators chasing you around every day and ripping parts off of you, and you have euthanasia. You don't have to have, a cruel natural death that can be really brutal. So, all animal suffering is bad. Farmed animal suffering is obviously bad. We need to work towards a world where Earth, for example, the planet, we don't rely on animals anymore. So we need to remove the animal populations and our dependence on them. So yes, we need to work towards a vegan world, but at the minute, ironically, veganism causes more suffering. But we try not to focus on these things too much. And we say that if you want to do activism for our movement, you can be vegan, you can be non-vegan. If you understand that all suffering is bad, either way, then that's what matters. And, if you try to spend too much time perfecting your own life, then that's time that you could be spending actually doing activism for the movement and contributing to the goal of the movement, instead of trying to just focus on how to live your own personal life, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you a lot. It was very nice talking to you, and you answered all my questions. And maybe I listen to you again.
Where are you from? Are you German?
From Austria.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we have some German activists. So if you do join our WhatsApp group, I'm sure they can talk to you.
Thank you a lot. Goodbye.
Thank you for coming on. That was a surprisingly nice conversation. We don't get many of them. However, this stream, I feel like I'm having a lot of good conversations, a lot of support from the people. People are waking up to the fact that we should make sure no child is at risk of suffering. Hello.
Hiya. How are things? Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm good. How are you?
I'm grand now. I'm just interesting topic. I was just wondering, would it not be more useful to put efforts into just trying to make the world a better place, as in capturing, and sorry, I'm not used to being on live, so I'm a bit nervous. Putting more effort into just creating healthier and more productive practices, and trying to catch people who are, bad people who are creating the suffering in the first place, or creating, improving industries so that there's less suffering going on. Would that not be more productive use of time and energy?
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but unfortunately, what your plan would imply is not going against suffering as much as we can. So your plan is about, or generally most people, the status quo position, kind of what you're saying, is about saying that we shouldn't be against the risk of suffering. We should allow it. So that inevitably leads to children being tortured, being abused. So we should be as against that as possible, and not essentially dip into the child abuse money pot and spend some of that money. We should keep our hands out of that pot.
Well, it just seems that you've kind of jumped to an extreme of, it seems, of a kind of anti-life movement, really.
Well, we live in a world of extreme suffering. It's an extreme problem.
But there's a spectrum, like everything, of suffering. And you're kind of jump into the extreme examples.
There is a spectrum, and at the worst end of that spectrum are horrors beyond imagination that you're saying that we should allow.
No, what I'm saying is that we should put more effort into trying to prevent those things from happening in the first place.
That's what we're doing at the pro-extinction movement. There's no way,
but in a way that's pro-life, not anti-life.
But then you're pro-suffering, basically, right?
Well, suffering isn't automatically bad. Like
it is.
Obviously,
it absolutely is.
Extreme suffering is in those, like the cases that you highlighted there. But like day-to-day annoyances and suffering that we go through,
right? But
and as well, isn't it also on a case-by-case basis?
But that's not important.
It is important on a case-by-case basis. Like, for example, if you live in a safe enough country, and you have enough money to bring up a child, and you know that you're going to be good parents, and
But
chances
even if
are,
you
if you
do
look
that,
at,
even if you're a saint, even if you're a billionaire saint, your child can still have a terrible life, right? There's no way to guarantee a good life, or there's no way to guarantee safety from suffering without non-existence, right? It's just impossible.
yeah, but I think you're looking at it too black and white. You're kind of just jumping to the absolute extreme and just focusing on that the whole time.
Well,
Like,
I
as we
think
already
that
said, there's a spectrum,
I
and
would
most of us
say
aren't
that
at the extreme.
I would say that preventing child abuse and child torture should be black and white. You're the one saying that we shouldn't prevent it because we can have a bit of fun at their expense.
No, that's not.
Um,
I'm not saying that. I'm saying we should put our time and effort into creating a society where that doesn't happen or hardly ever happens.
That's what the pro-extinction movement is about.
By
But
that's an anti-life movement. That's not really a pro let's make society better movement. It's an anti-life movement. That's what that
well,
is.
no, it's not. It's an anti-suffering movement actually. So there's a big distinction. Because the important thing is about preventing children from suffering, preventing anyone and any animal, any life form from suffering. You wouldn't want to be tortured. Children shouldn't have to be tortured. We should absolutely have a zero tolerance policy on child abuse. And you're saying that that's too extreme of a position.
No,
So,
I'm not saying that, but I'm saying we could. I think most people already have that position, but they're not saying don't reproduce in order to stop that from
right,
continuing in the
but
future.
that is the
They're
only
two
way to
very
stop
different
it from
things.
happening.
They're two very different things.
But that is the only way to stop it from happening, though. So, I mean, you've got no response because it's true. There is no way to end child abuse and suffering without extinction. So you are by default supporting it happening, unless you say, yeah, we should prevent this at all costs. You are quite literally saying we shouldn't prevent this at all costs, and therefore that is at the expense of the sufferers and the victims. You're
Well,
saying that we
you're
should.
only focusing on suffering. You're not
Yes,
focusing on
you're saying that
you're not
we
focusing on joy and every other. There's a full
exactly.
spectrum of
Yes,
emotions and
correct.
experiences we have throughout our lives. You're
The
just focusing
joy.
on suffering all
Listen,
the time.
the joy of a rapist is not more important than the safety of his victim, right? You shouldn't get to victimize others for pleasure.
But we have no
Um,
idea in terms like technology is improving so quickly that we have no idea what we could possibly be able to accomplish in the future in terms of creating a safer society, and
right,
that's
but
just kind of a lack of imagination, really,
no,
because
it's
you
not.
don't
It's
know
actually
you don't know what we could actually prevent in the future because we
it's
just
not
don't
about a
know.
lack of imagination. It's about being practical and about prioritizing the sufferers and helping them. Okay, so if you want to prioritize safety from terrible experiences and being forced into a life of misery, then extinction is the best way to do it. There's because, like, think about it this way: if I have a child right now, it's completely impossible to guarantee that they'll be safe from a terrible life. But if I don't have them, then they are safe, and that's more important.
But there you can like you can. What about probability? Like, if you're born into a war-torn country, an impoverished family who can barely feed themselves, and then you have a kid there, yeah, that's a bad idea, because chances are they're going to have a horrible life. But if you live in a safer country with, and your chances are, and just, they're going to have a
But
better life. It's
but
probability.
ultimately, it's cruel. You're saying, okay, what if they have slightly better chances of not being tortured? It's still cruel because you're still saying it's acceptable to not be all in against cruelty. You're saying we should allow some cruelty so that some others can benefit at their expense. That is by definition cruel, and it's obviously wrong. No child should be tortured, and you're saying that we should risk it a little bit so that we can benefit. The victims and the children that suffer as a result don't deserve that. It's cruel.
Okay, when I'm talking to people about this particular subject, I can't help. I'm not coming at you or attacking you or personally or anything because I don't know you, but I can't help but think that the people who jump to these extremes, they must be projecting something from their own
But
lives
it is
onto
wanting
it.
no child to be abused really? If that's an extreme thing to you, then I would say that you need to look yourself in the mirror and say, do I really think it's acceptable for children to be abused?
No, I guess I just have more hope for the, I'm just more, I guess, I'm just
But
willing to,
optimism causes suffering.
I'm willing to accept that I do not know how good society could possibly get in the future due to technological
But
advancements.
it's not even about society. The vast majority of sufferers are animals. So
Well,
their conditions
are you
never
equating?
improved.
You're obviously animal suffering is horrible, but you're equating it with human suffering first of all, and you're kind of assuming everyone does, which
Well,
obviously they
no,
don't because they're eating meat all the time.
I'm not assuming that everyone is trapped in a hell-like life of suffering. And actually, it's kind of a straw man for you to say that. But animals do suffer worse than humans do, right? And there's no reason to discriminate against them unless you're being selfish.
Well, I guess the only way we would know that is if we were able to experience life as an animal to judge whether we are, experiencing higher levels of pain
there's
than
no
we are.
way, there's no way to know that the world's even real, right? But does that mean that we should just lay down and do nothing? No. That's just a pathetic excuse to let the victims down and to disappoint them.
I'm not talking about doing nothing. I'm talking about improving our societies.
No, you're saying that
How
we
is that
shouldn't
doing
give a
nothing?
shit about animals because we can't even be sure if they
No,
feel
you're jumping.
pain.
You're jumping to extremes. You really are.
Safety from suffering isn't an extreme thing. If you really think that children being safe from abuse is an extreme thing, then you're extremely sick in the head. It is as simple as that. Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm all right. I've been listening for a minute, and I've just got a few questions. With this movement, what is the ultimate goal?
Great question.
Practically speaking, I mean, I'm not talking about because a lot of this has been like theory and philosophy and the idea of things, but you're trying to grow a movement which inevitably ends in actually causing a lot of suffering to get it done and over with. So what's the point of your movement?
Well, actually, the majority of what we want to do involves no suffering. So I'm not sure where you're getting that from.
Well, in order, basically, the extinction, right? To extinct everything, right? To get basically terminate everything. That's kind of just doesn't make any sense to me. It's like nature is cruel. Yeah, we all accept nature is cruel because that's just how nature is. But to think that we have control over nature is just silly.
Of course we do.
We do what?
We control nature on a daily basis.
Sure, but what I'm trying to say is long before us, nature was doing what it's doing, and nature will continue doing stuff long after we're gone as well. That's just nature.
Not necessarily.
Why?
Because
why should we have the power to decide what nature does?
Because nature isn't a sentient thing. It doesn't have opinions or it doesn't think things through. It's just a natural, chaotic process that causes suffering, basically. So there's no reason to respect nature.
Can you not see how this ideology is actually really dangerous? Because if you get people on with well, hear me out for a second, right? We all have seen what's been happening in the Middle East, right, in the last 2.5 years. One side thinks their suffering is more important or less important than the other side. Therefore,
I don't think it's about that. I don't think it's about that. They just hate each other.
If you hear the testimonials where it's us versus them, i.e. our suffering versus their suffering, therefore we should get rid of all of them, then we'll be better off, right? This ideology of suffering, I don't know, I just feel like it's a very dangerous rhetoric and ideology to have and to share and spread, because people can take what their version or their subjective view of what suffering is and project it outwards.
What do you mean?
What do you mean? If you're saying that suffering is bad, therefore the answer is to basically have non-existence, right? Non-existence can happen in many ways, right? There's no right. I mean, unless you're thinking of giving lethal injections to every living thing on the planet. But realistically speaking, in order to, let's say, I mean, because you keep going, I've heard you keep going to the child stuff, and everyone can agree that child abuse is bad, right? It's wrong. But let's just use statistics for a second and say, okay, if there are 8 billion people on this planet, and of those 8 billion people, 0.5% are suffering to those extremes, is it morally right to then make all of the 99.5 people extinct as a consequence of that suffering?
Yeah.
You think so? You think that's the right thing to do?
Well, you see, it's about preventing future generations from suffering as well. So, you can't prevent
But you're making the
suffering.
assumption that there will be future suffering. You're making that
Well,
assumption. That's an assumption. You can't prove it. You can't factually say that's going to happen.
I think that's pretty cringe if that's what you're
Why?
saying. It's just cringe to say that, wow, it's an assumption to say that there's going to be suffering tomorrow. If that's how your brain works, then I wish you well, and I hope you get all the help you need. Okay, moving on. We've got someone called Holly. Hello, how's it going?
All good, all good. Is this a joke or are you deadly serious?
No, child abuse isn't a joke, and we should have safety from it. It's a real movement. You can check us out at proextinction.com. I didn't start the movement myself. It's existed for 3 years. It's been growing internationally. We have people all over the world growing the movement to end all suffering.
And that is by mass euthanasia. What's the end? The means to the end.
So to have animal extinction on Earth, we probably will need euthanasia for those animals. It's actually,
and how far are we? Sorry to interrupt, but how far are we taking it? Are we taking it down to single cell amoebas? Are we taking it down to mollusks? The sea?
We're taking it further than that. We're taking it even further than that. So
okay.
As the movement against suffering, we effectively want to have the most anti-suffering, we want to be as against suffering as physically possible. So that means researching truly, the furthest reaches of what can provide safety from suffering. So never stopping until there's literally nothing more that we can do. So that means, crazy future science and technology. It means preventing life from developing on other planets and from coming back on Earth. And as such, it's not really about killing or euthanasia. The vast majority of what extinctionism is about preventing future life which doesn't currently exist and preventing future suffering, because that's where the majority of the suffering is. It's in the future. The life that exists today pales in comparison numerically to the life that's going to exist over the next billions of years. So they are the majority stakeholders.
Just to interject quickly. So when you talk about suffering, you use the example of child abuse. I've heard that a couple of times in this. Are we talking, suffering is the other side of good things, right? So in order to experience happiness, in order to experience anything, you must experience the opposite to truly appreciate it. So are we saying that it's just certain forms of suffering? Or are we saying that if I go without a hot shower for the next 2 days and then I take a hot shower and I really enjoy it, I've suffered, but then I'm very appreciative of what I have, right? So
yeah, but only the lucky ones get to experience any sort of good balance of suffering and pleasure. For those that don't,
but you're making an assumption on evolution and on where we end up as a species. If we were to take out the human experience in the way that it possibly could go, where you could have some kind of future, and this is not the future that I would like the future where suffering is part of life and it is something that is experienced by everybody and allows people to have common ground. But if we go the future where...
But you realize it's not about that, right? You realize you're talking about something completely different. The suffering at the gym to get bigger muscles is very different from a child being raped to death, right?
I didn't mention the gym at all. Is that a sore spot for you?
Thanks for coming on. Always fun to have trolls, I guess, but ultimately we might be able to get some more interesting people on. So moving through the list, we've got Michael, who's been begging to come on for a while. Let's get Michael up. Hello.
Hello.
How's it going?
Good. So I noticed you've been throwing around the word suffering. Could you just give me your definition of suffering?
Yeah, it's experiences that you want to avoid, basically. So, pain, stuff like that.
Could you want to avoid something that's virtuous?
Don't know.
So, like, let's say, like, you want to avoid going into work one day, but that virtuous action will lead to more money in your bank account. Would that be suffering?
Yeah, but that's not really relevant because we have much worse forms of suffering. So if you're treating that as if that's the only suffering
When
in
did I say
play,
that?
but it is implied effectively.
No, that's not implied. I asked you
It
to
is
elaborate
implied.
on your definition.
It is implied, Michael, because you're avoiding talking about it, and you're literally avoiding talking about the subject of the day, which is extreme suffering and safety from it, and you're trying to strawman it into should I have to suffer at work to get paid? That's sort
No,
of
that is not what I said. You just strawmanned my position. I'm asking you for a logically conclusive, like, definition of suffering. So I'm saying, could suffering be
why do you
something?
need it? Why do you
Why do
need
I
it?
need it? Need
Yeah.
what? It's your
Uh,
question. I'm saying,
but
if suffering is something that you avoid, right, but it leads to something virtuous, would that be suffering? Can it be suffering if you avoid it, is what you said.
look, suffering can absolutely lead to good outcomes. It would be crazy to deny that ever happens. But a child being raped to death, I would say that doesn't really have any chance of a good outcome or
You're a hard
balance.
determinist, though, right?
Say again?
You're a hard determinist?
Yeah.
So they're just causally, like, obligated to do that. Like, there wasn't a choice in that, right?
Correct.
Okay, so should they be punished for that?
No.
They shouldn't be punished for raping a child to death, just to be clear.
Ideally, no one should be punished for anything because no one should exist, right?
Okay, wait, I just want to be clear for everyone listening. This guy just said, because he's a hard determinist, no one should be punished for raping a child to death.
Well, the thing is that you need punishment as a deterrent, right?
That's a
But yes,
contradiction. That's a contradiction. You just said they shouldn't be punished, but we need punishment? That's a contradiction.
it's not a contradiction at all, and here's why.
Explain it.
Okay, so yeah, obviously you need a deterrent, but they're suffering. It'd be better off if they weren't. It'd be better off if no one was suffering, right?
So no one avoiding actions, that's what you're saying?
What do you mean? I don't understand.
So your definition of suffering is something that we avoid. So if no one avoided anything, would anyone be suffering?
I mean, Michael, your questions have reached cringe level 9,000. I'm happy to have you on another time, but it's getting too cringe, bro. Okay, let's move on. Hello?
Hey.
Hi.
So I understand your point of view here. I just thought I could maybe debunk it because I see your bottom part of your text that you are actually practically working towards achieving something like this.
Yeah.
The reason I don't think that's possible is if a small group of people who shared your position wanted to try and do this, I don't think they would be able to accomplish that scientifically.
Well, who can really say what the future holds, hey? I mean, technology is growing and advancing exponentially along with science. So I think it's quite naive to say that we can really put limits on what's possible.
Well, sure, I could see that, but my argument would be that for you to, I think you'd probably need to start with like eliminating life furthest away from our reach, and then probably work your way towards life that's easier to eliminate. And in those processes, humanity would perish before eliminating nearly all life.
Potentially, yes. If we can hand the job over to AI, then happy days. At that point, humanity wouldn't need to exist anymore. We're just the current existing vehicle for ending all suffering. We could pass the baton on to robots. Yeah, why not?
Well, I don't see that we are anywhere near that confidence level to, put our
Yeah,
full
right.
trust in AI
Oh, I
to
agree.
do that. And it would be
I
very
agree.
unfortunate if we did that and didn't accomplish,
I couldn't agree more.
this
I couldn't agree more.
ending of
So
suffering.
our principles are that we should only trust AI with the mission if we can trust it. So we have to be certain. And there's lots of, it could go wrong, and then there'd be no one around to end suffering. So yes, humanity is the backup with a plan B, with a contingency. But currently, we are the main vehicle. But yeah, AI might become the main vehicle in the future.
Okay. Well, I guess, yeah, that is true. So I don't think your movement is practical in today's age, but
Well,
I
I mean,
guess it's
look,
something you can continue working towards.
we don't have faster than light travel today, and we're not claiming that we do. We're not claiming that Earth extinction is even possible today. You could definitely start doing it today and start working on it, but yeah, we need to work towards making it possible. And even if the technology doesn't exist today, we still need the movement to exist to make it possible going forward. People say like, "Oh, your extinction, even your movement's not going to have any success for like 1,000 years, maybe. So your time today is wasted." But no, if I'm the one making it so that it does happen 1,000 years from now, then I'm not wasting my time.
Right. I guess there's a point that I think about where you will never really be sure if AI would carry on that task to its completion. I think AI probably needs some sort of support from some kind of sentient being in our current understanding of it. Self-automated AI process that would run for eternity is something that you are proposing.
I don't see what's wrong with that. It seems pretty realistic to me, to be honest with you.
Well, yeah, it could be currently occurring, and we just don't know about it. That's true.
Well, if you ever do feel like working towards the end of suffering is worth your time, check out our website, read more about our movements, and join us.
Thank you. Will do. Thanks.
Thank you for coming on. Appreciate your time. All right, let's move on. Who have we got? Clint Eastwood. Ooh, that sounds cool. Let's hope I don't get shot. Am I feeling lucky? Punk? Hello. Hello. Okay. Clint, you're out. Hello?
Hello.
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 How's it going? How do?
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
First of all, how are you doing?
Good, thank you.
So, I have a weird question.
Okay.
I am myself considering myself as an antinatalist. I'm sure you know what it means.
Yep.
And I also consider myself on principle pro extinction.
Okay.
But when I try to think about it and like console the two of them, I see a contradiction.
Okay.
And the contradiction between my pro-extinction and my antinatalism goes something like this. from one side, I think that imposing life on any creature, human or other animal, is wrong because of the suffering, because of the risks, because of the lack of consent.
Yep.
So that's from the antinatalism side. And from the pro-extinction side, I do believe that we should strive to the most vast extinction possible, even in universal terms. Like even let's say that there are aliens out there, we should somehow try to make them extinct as well.
Yep.
But where is the contradiction that I can't solve, and I would like to hear your opinion about it, is that if having children is wrong, according to my opinion, it means that everybody should embrace it, and in 75 years or 100 years, humanity will be extinct. And then it makes like the window to cause universal extinction limited to human extinction. And if I think about it, so we need to cause extinction first, or strive for extinction, that means that we should have children in order to cause the extinction. You understand what I mean?
That is correct.
So from one side, I can't impose life on anybody. On the other side, if we go extinct too early, we won't cause extinction for other creatures. So can you tell me what's your opinion about it? What do you think? How is it should be solved? Sorry, English is not my language, so.
Yeah, I mean, you've hit the nail on the head, really, spot on. So antinatalism is bad for extinction. You've said it. If humans go extinct first, then it's discrimination against animals because they can't do it for themselves. So they'll just keep suffering, and they also suffer worse than we do because we have houses, we have electricity, we have medicine. Animals don't have any of that, especially the ones in nature, in the wild. So yeah, we absolutely should keep reproducing. Humanity should stay strong and healthy and powerful. And even if you did your antinatalism thing, you're going to have like 90-year-old people trying to do animal extinction while living in a care home with no nurses, right? It's just never going to work. So you do have to have human reproduction for as long as necessary.
So that leads me to the second question. So let's say that I agree with you for the sake of the discussion that antinatalism is wrong because we can't go extinct first. And now that antinatalism is out of the window, let's say that we manage to convince the majority, or we manage to convince enough people to cause extinction, to strive for extinction. And now we actually designing a technology that will promote this extinction. Let's say the big red button. Okay, you probably know about this thought experiment. And let's say that we calculated that we can destroy like 80% of all life on Earth. Okay, do you think that we should wait to advance even more the technology to cause 100% extinction? Because how do you know, how we as human knows when it's the right time to press the button? Because we can always be wrong and say, we need to work furthermore about our technology. Do you understand what I'm trying to ask?
Yeah, well, most likely it's going to involve an AI system that's making the decisions to some extent. And I think that we can start doing extinction for animals immediately. We already have euthanasia, so it's already possible. Now, we might have to develop the euthanasia and to do a bit of science on it, but I don't think it'll be that hard. And I think we can start immediately. We need to remove our dependence on animals at the same time. So make it possible to have, a fully vegan world. Make it possible not to, at the minute we have pollination done by animals. We have lots of things done by animals that we rely on. So removing our need for animals is going to be just as important as actually removing the animals themselves. But no, I don't think we should wait for a better version. We can just keep doing it all and improving at the same time. And Earth extinction for animals. I think it's going to be pretty easy, relatively speaking. The difficult thing is going to be universe extinction. That's actually the majority of the mission.
That leads me to my third question. So let's say that antinatalism is wrong, of course, and then we go to convince everybody about Earth extinction. What do you think about the fact that there is possible, like, alien life, and what is the responsibility, the moral responsibility or relationship between ourselves and these alien lives? Do we should consider them also in our extinction, or just say, it's out of reach, it's too far away, we don't need to do anything about like life on other planets? Or you think that we should strive for even universal extinction?
I think we should strive for universe extinction, and we should do as much as we can for as many sufferers as possible. And just because they're far away doesn't mean that they deserve to suffer. So if we're completely against discrimination, then that means trying to help as much life as possible. And it also means understanding that, our suffering is going to be nothing compared to theirs. Even if we only manage to help one planet, except for Earth, and even if we help just one alien planet, that's going to prevent billions of years of suffering on that planet. So it's already worth it. So even if we had to spend 1 billion years developing the technology to help one planet, it would still be the right thing to do. But I think, we do have billions of years of time to do this. So we have a long time. We have all the time in the world to try and max the technology, maximize our ability to help others and to prevent their suffering.
Thank you for your answers. And I just want to ask, if I may, another question regarding the antinatalism concept. So would that be right to say or summarize that, for example, I don't know if you have children yourself personally, but let's say that you will have children, and one day will ask you, Daddy, what is the meaning of life? Why did you brought me to this life? And your answer would probably go something like this, that existence is suffering, life is involves suffering, and you brought him here to this life to help cause extinction and end all suffering? Is that like...
Yeah, basically. Yeah. I would say that, our principles are against forcing life to exist at all, and especially in conditions with less than 100% safety, which is basically magic. So if you have magic, then sure. But anything less than that, it's unfair to force life to exist when there's a risk of it suffering. But, we've had to do it because we had no choice. It was the lesser of two evils to force you to exist in this world. I'm sorry that you had to experience that, but, it was necessary, and effectively we had no choice.
So basically the only imposition that is of life that is permissible is if only its goal is to cause extinction in the end, right?
Yeah, I would say that causing suffering to prevent more suffering is a good thing. It doesn't even have to be extinction. It is extinction, but just if I had to stab one person to prevent two people being stabbed, it's the right thing to do, I would say. So yeah.
So why do I feel like intuitively, like I feel in my stomach that something is still doesn't, like it's to impose life on somebody else to join the extinction cause doesn't feel right to me. Can you try to maybe solve this for me? Because in my perspective, the child can answer something like this. I know that extinction is the right cause. I know that everyone experiences suffering, but it's still wrong to impose it on me, because before I was created, I didn't care about extinction. I didn't care about suffering. And it feels like some kind of exploitation. Do you understand what I mean? It's like
It is
we are
exploitation, yeah.
here
But
because
we don't have a choice.
we are here.
If we're guided by the greater good and ending all suffering, then we don't really have a choice but to do whatever it takes to make that happen. So, imagine if 99% of humanity got wiped out in a plague. Obviously, we'd have to repopulate humanity for the sake of the animals and aliens. So, yeah, it's sad, but what you need to do is you need to think of the other victims, the other sufferers. So you have to consider the greater good, the totality of all suffering, and virtually infinite suffering. So that's what we need to focus on, and that's it does justify causing some suffering, sadly, but it is necessary.
Yeah, no, I understand you. I totally understand you. It's like I'm split. I'm split. From one side, I understand the arguments of extinctions, and if I could cause extinction, I would press this button without a thought. But to impose life on somebody else doesn't make sense to me either. So it feels like.
But you see, life is going to get imposed on other life forms if you don't do it, right? So just because you're doing it doesn't make a difference. And that's what you need to understand as well. Suffering caused by people is not worse than suffering caused by nature. It's not automatically worse just because you've done it. So you have to think about those that are suffering in nature. And, I would say that your antinatalism is almost like an animalistic thing, because I would say that every mentality, every attitude that allows suffering, I would say is animalistic. So that goes to antinatalism as well, because wanting to end as much suffering as possible means that your empathetic circle, you don't have a circle, it's just infinite, right? Your concern for other life is infinite. But antinatalism is about prioritizing human suffering and the suffering that we cause. So it's kind of irrational in that sense, because we should be focusing on all suffering without discrimination and the goal of achieving, a suffering-free world for all, basically. So you need to focus on the greater good and the bigger goal. Focus on the greater amount of suffering, the bigger amount of suffering.
Yeah, I myself, I agree with everything you say, and you really scratched like things that I needed to think about. Thank you for your answer.
Check out our website, proextinction.com. You can read more about us. We have a lot of information on the website, and we have a lengthy, frequently asked questions page, our FAQ. So we have like 40 questions on that or something, and they go into detail. So check that out and consider joining the movement and doing activism with us, contributing, even if it's just ideas, anything. Contribute however you can to the movement and to ending all suffering for everyone. So proextinction.com, and thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
Okay, and have a great day. Okay, moving on to another guest. Ooh, that guy looks like a philosopher. Sounds a bit boring. We've got Jammy Boys, the troll from earlier. Few trolls there. Did we have Cosmic Man on yet? I can't remember. Let's try them. Hello again.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. So I have so many questions. Let's start with like practically, how will you like go about achieving your goals?
How will we go about extinction? So practically, we have to grow the movement first to make it possible, and then we'll be using euthanasia for animals on Earth, and for the rest of the universe, it will be about preventing life from developing, preventing life from coming about on a lifeless planet. So that is the vast majority of our mission at the pro-extinction movement. It's, I mean, people think of extinction as something that happens to a species. For us, extinction is mostly about preventing a species, preventing life. So that's kind of how we think about it.
Okay, and when you say like life, I guess you mean like all life, even like unicellular life, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And what if, like, in the future, we could come up with a technology, like imagine like we have extinguished all animal life, and then like we have this technology where we could like put some chip into every person that's born into their bodies, and we could like when suffering reaches some threshold, we get like the authorities get a signal, and then they immediately like investigate the situation. Wouldn't that be a better alternative to extinguishing human life?
Yeah, so we need human life to continue for a long time, hundreds, maybe even thousands of years, maybe more. So, that system, we could definitely do that. Now, does humanity have to go extinct? That is a question for the future, but it will come down to whether or not humanity is at risk and whether or not it poses a risk to others. They could engage in reproduction and cause some suffering. They could say, you know what, screw it, I want to be evil and create a planet full of animals and make them suffer. Who knows, right? But they could also suffer themselves as well. If there's even a tiny chance that they could end up in a life of torture and hell, then we would prioritize their suffering and their safety over that. So it
Well,
really
I
comes
mean, what
down
about the
to what's
scenario I
safe.
gave you? Like, what if we had like this perfect technology? We could implement it, and we would like know whenever someone is suffering, and their suffering is like um, a lot. Like we have this threshold, okay, and then the authorities would do something about it, like immediately. Um, wouldn't that be a better alternative to ending life? Because there is also a lot of like joy in life, right? So if we could have the joy without the suffering, or minimal suffering, let's say, wouldn't that be a better alternative using technology that way?
The thing is that safety always comes first. Safety will always be more important. So even if there's a tiny chance that allowing humanity to exist is going to go wrong, then it's not worth it. So we shouldn't take chances with suffering. We should be as against suffering as physically possible, and that means being as against the existence of life as physically possible, because it is the biggest exposure of risk to suffering that you can have. So we should be against that risk.
Okay, I guess we disagree on that. Let me move to another point. So, what if like the majority of people agree with you? Like, yeah, we should end like all life basically. And what would you do with those people who refuse, who have another opinion? Like they don't want to like end their lives or whatever. Like they want to procreate, they want to keep living and all that. What would you do with those people?
We would just euthanize them.
By force, you mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. Okay, I mean, that was all my questions for now. I have to think more about your philosophy.
Okay, well, again, consider reading our manifesto and our lengthy FAQ page on our website, proextinction.com, and also consider joining our WhatsApp or our Discord. The buttons are at the bottom of the page on the website, and you can come and ask us more questions if you'd like. So thank you for joining us, and we will move on to whoever's next. Loading them in, and hello.
Hello, I just scrolled on your page and I already love it. How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Oh, I could complain, but who cares, right? So, I'm really curious. What does this pro-extinction thing mean?
It means being as against suffering as possible and the risk of suffering. So ideally, we should have a universe with no life and no possibility of developing life. That's what we're working towards.
So create a void.
However you have to do it, just prevent life from existing.
But okay, I was all in and now I'm curious. So okay, so if you create void, then the concept of suffering doesn't exist. So if the concept of suffering doesn't exist, how can you delete suffering if it doesn't exist? It's like saying that you can delete the sun, daylight by deleting the sun.
I mean, think
Then
about
you
it this
stop it
way.
all.
Think about it this way. If someone was in hell and, you know, they didn't want to be there, it was awful, you know, non-existence would be better, right? It's
Well, sure.
Yeah, so it's as simple as that.
Well, biblically and theoretically, though, the only people that technically go to hell are people that deserve to suffer. Therefore, if you give them nothing, you're basically giving them an easy out. Is that what we want?
But, you know, the thing is that we've got children being tortured to death, right? They're
Sure.
innocent, they don't deserve it, and, you know, the only way to guarantee that doesn't happen is with total extinction.
Yes and no. I mean, you are technically correct. However, the reason why it consistently keeps happening is because there's laws put in place that protect the people that are doing it. Either that, or the people that are doing it are in high
Yeah,
enough
but
power.
the thing is, even the strongest laws don't work fully, right? You know?
Oh, 100%, 100%. Now, if you were to say pro-extinction of the political class or the elitist class, 100%, I would agree with you on that because they literally commit human atrocities on a daily basis. And it doesn't matter who they are. You can't get rich without fucking someone. That's how it works. But realistically and overall, if you take out even the good that haven't suffered, then ultimately the ideology of suffering can't exist because there's no one to make it exist.
It doesn't need to
Does that make
exist.
sense?
The safety from suffering is more important than the ideology existing. Again,
But you're
you know,
basically saying that existence is suffering.
right, but you know, this world is effectively hell, right? So we should definitely stop innocence from being forced into it and suffering.
I think that we should, in my opinion, pick up arms and start going after those that are doing those things to children rather than taking out the children that are having those things held
But you
against them.
see, it's not really
It's
people.
counterintuitive.
It's not about people doing it. It's about existence doing it. It's about life doing it. And there's
But not
much
all life
worse.
does it.
But there's much worse things than assaulting a child, right? A child can get brain cancer and suffer far worse. They can get all
Sure.
sorts of terrible things happen, injuries, right? Brain
But
damage.
but you also mentioned the Bible and bringing that up as well. Wouldn't that also be the will of God if a child is born with a deformity?
Well, I'm an
That
atheist,
would be.
so when I say hell, I'm using it descriptively.
So I'm a Luciferian, so I understand the differences in the between. So that's kind of where I'm coming from with this. Is like I
But
do
look,
agree with the premise of what you're.
any god that is sending children to be, you know, molested and tortured to death, you know, that's not a god I would support anyway. Even if they did exist, I
That's
would
why I
say,
don't support the biblical God. That's why I don't support Christianity, Catholicism, because they're the ones that do that. That's why I'm a Luciferian, because we're the ones that are opposed to that shit, but we're the bad guy. So I agree with you, like I do in massive ways, right? My biggest point I'm trying to kind of relay is that like you can't You can't exodus from suffering if suffering does not exist. If you exodus from everything, then literally suffering does not exist. On top of
Yeah,
that, if you
but the thing
exodus
is that doesn't
everybody
make
out
sense because it
from
doesn't make
potential
sense.
suffering, right?
Look, listen.
Sure.
If a sadist is about to kidnap a woman off the street, take her to a dungeon, impregnate her, and then start torturing the child once it gets born, right? I think we can all agree that we should stop that from happening, and that
100%. And there's ways to do that.
we wouldn't sit around saying, but maybe we should let that child get tortured because
No.
we can't prevent its suffering if it doesn't exist. Right?
So, children nowadays, especially, are forced at the age between 5 and 7 to go through an early psychological assessment to determine whether or not they're capable of certain things, whether their mind sets them in certain things. Do they torture animals for fun? Are they going to turn into a sociopath or a killer? There are tests that determine this shit. The problem is, nowadays, instead of taking the Neanderthalic route, which is when we find a mental deficiency, we find a physical deficiency, we find something wrong, we take them to a cliff and throw them off. Instead of doing that, we analyze the situation, allow the person to continue to exist. Once that persists to a certain level of physical ability, they're able to actually do these things. The mental cognition that allows them to do these things, that at that point is no longer the responsibility of the one committing those crimes. That is the responsibility of the mental health team put in place to make sure that doesn't happen.
But here's the thing is that it's not even relevant because the majority of suffering that happens in nature and is independent of sexual assault or humanity at all.
Well, sure. We could
really,
go into
it's not about
animalistic primal behavior,
but it's not about behavior. You're making it sound like it's just about actions, but diseases,
it's not just behavior.
Diseases, starvation, things like that, injuries, they cause terrible suffering. So it's about life, it's about suffering, it's not about anything in particular. It's just that it's simply that we should be as against suffering as possible. That's the good thing to do. That's the right
I am against suffering. But see, I'm so against suffering that I believe that the person who's suffering should be put into a position where they cannot be exposed to that particular form of suffering. However, as a human, every day, a plane could fucking land on me as we're talking right now. So speaking on nature and primitive cause, yes, you're 100% right. Suffering is a crappy thing, but it is a way of, are you really alive if you can't feel it? That's kind of where that sits. But to ultimately end suffering in ways that people cause other people to suffer, there's already ways put in place to prevent that from happening. The problem, and the big problem, is that when most people, like for example, Robert Pickton, people knew Robert Pickton was fucked ever since he was a kid. But the government got involved, but they didn't have the facilitation at the time to deal with it. The proper way to deal with that is to either put a giant 20-foot fence around his fucking property or shoot him dead. Other than that, taking a psychopath and leaving him in society, what the fuck do you think is going to happen? You think he's just going to leave everybody alone?
I completely agree. However, again, I would say that you are a psychopath if you don't think that we should have total safety from suffering. If you, again, as I was saying earlier in the stream, it comes down to being as against suffering as physically possible. That means working towards a universe with no life and with no possibility for life. Because anything else literally creates the possibility of child abuse, animal abuse, whether it's at the hands of nature or other people, it doesn't matter. It creates suffering. Suffering is the problem, not animal abuse or this or that. It's the suffering, because all of these different problems, why are they problems? It's because they create suffering, right? Anyway, we're an atheistic movement, and we believe in the scientific method. So we're against Luciferians just as much as anyone else, and just as we're against anyone that is against doing activism to help end suffering. Hello.
Hi there.
How's it going?
It's going pretty good. How's your day going?
Yeah, all right, thanks.
Awesome. I want to say I agree with your premises. I've been approved for medically assisted dying since 2022. I've had a lifelong chronic illness since childhood.
Sorry to hear that.
And thank you. I've tried to articulate this experience to the people around me all my life. And I found that it's very difficult to get this sentiment through to people. And that if you are in life, you kind of end up being captured. I remember feeling like I was in a prison or there was no way to cope and deal. But now that I have the option to leave if I want, it makes life a lot more manageable. And I would say that that is the treatment for existence, is that, you know, if you have the key, a jail even can become a home.
That's an interesting perspective, yeah. Yeah, I've wondered about that myself. You know, would having the option to do it in a much more accessible way than doing it yourself, would that make life sort of more comfortable? How would that affect you? Obviously, the ultimate problem is for when people don't have the privilege of that option, right? So as terrible as your situation is, I would say that it would be much worse if you didn't have the help, right? The assisted euthanasia. But most life doesn't get that option. So, you know, we have a lot of people coming onto the show saying, oh, well, you know, anyone that doesn't like it, they can just opt out. But that's not a realistic thing. You know, people with mental and physical disabilities, children, babies, and obviously animals, they don't get the ability to just opt out. So for most life, they really are completely trapped, unfortunately.
That's right. And even the ones that do have the option, they find that there's this odd effect amongst people to sort. It's almost like the crabs in the bucket.
I see what you mean. Yeah. You're going to say that everyone's saying, you know, they shouldn't be safe from suffering. They should keep suffering, basically, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I actually made a video about this today, saying that, you know, we need to stop coping, because coping and trying to convince ourselves that life is a good thing so that we can feel more comfortable, that's causing more suffering to others. So we need to stop coping. We need to stop being afraid to say that life is a bad thing. We should just come out and start saying it. Life is a bad thing. It's not acceptable. It causes extreme suffering. It shouldn't be allowed. Yeah, like people need to wake up and realize this.
Yeah. So my last comment on this would be, I would say push through that, and if people aren't listening, stop talking to them about it. Like, I would say just make your own decision about how you feel about life, and don't worry about the opinion of others, because that can be even more suffering if people aren't listening to you, they don't understand you, and they just push their ideas on you from a place that you are not at.
Bias, basically. In fact, really, you can explain, this is an amazing fact. You can explain all of human irrationality and selfishness by like bias, right? They're biased towards selfishness. It's a bit of a bold claim, I know, but I would say that being against suffering makes you less irrational, right? Makes you less crazy, because you're on the side of what is correct and right, which is being against child abuse, against all forms of suffering. So, you know, people trying to tell you that life is good and worth living, they're in an irrational, unintelligent bubble, basically, and they're not going to make sense because what they're saying doesn't make sense, right? They're not coming from a position of sense. They're coming from a position of coping and bias, effectively.
That's right. And the main thing that's challenging on that is you may love these people. And I mean, human emotions, no matter how intelligent a person is, are there. And if you have family and friends that don't understand, it's a lot more complicated in that scenario.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Most people have an animalistic hangover, basically. And the reason for that is that It was actually, obviously what's successful in nature is what survives and reproduces. And so to that end, it was more successful for life to have less empathy and less intelligence as well, because those things, empathy and intelligence, directly go against selfish survival and mindless reproduction, which is what nature thrives on. So we still have that animalistic hangover, right? A lion wouldn't have been very successful if it felt guilty every time it killed an animal and ate it. So we still suffer from that as well. And that's why, yeah, people, they don't get it. We need to evolve out of that animalistic thinking and animalistic way of being. But most people are not there yet. Absolutely.
That's right, and that's a great example. I thought of that myself. Imagine a lion that knows that it's a lion and doesn't want to kill to live. That would be a life of suffering and contradiction.
But those lions, if they ever did exist, they were bred out of existence by survival of the fittest, which is really like survival of the most selfish and the most primal, right? So yeah, good people are bred out of existence, and empathy is bred out of life. Intelligence is also bred out of life, because you can't intelligently support suffering. It's not possible. It's a contradiction. So to get life to support suffering, to get lions to support causing suffering, life had to squash intelligence and empathy, which makes sense, right? The people that you say don't want to listen, and they've got, they don't care, they're not empathetic, they don't have the empathy, they don't have the intelligence, they're just trying to cope and convince themselves that life is good and worth living when actually it's not.
All right, that's a great point. Thank you very much for the great conversation.
Yeah, I really appreciate you coming on. It's been a fantastic conversation. And please consider checking our website, proextinction.com, and joining the movement. We've got links to our Discord and our WhatsApp at the bottom of the page. Get involved today, join us, see how you can contribute. We will help you to contribute however you can, whether it's making videos or writing or doing something else, developing the movement, growing the movement. So like the anti-slavery movement, when they had the Civil War in America, they had a lot of power and influence there. And so we need to get the movement bigger to be able to do anything, right? The movement's not big enough. It's got about 10 to 20 people at the minute doing consistent activism. But we need more to have any chance of doing anything realistic. That's why I'm doing this stream. That's why I make videos. That's why all of the activists in the movement are doing activism every day, getting the message out there. It's to do work, to put in the work, to put in the effort to help us get towards a suffering-free world. We have the time to do it. We have the ability to do it. And the sufferers are relying on us. The children that will be tortured if we don't do this, the innocents that will be trapped in lives of hell, lives of misery and agony with no escape, they are relying on us. They are relying on extinction. They are relying on the end of all suffering, the prevention of being forced to exist in cruel conditions. And again, I would say that cruel conditions is life basically without magic, life without 100% safety from suffering. Because again, that's not realistic. It's never happened. You would absolutely need magic to have a life form exist and guarantee that there's nothing ever bad is ever going to happen to them, no matter what, ever. Even a solar flare is never going to come and attack them. A black hole is never going to form. An asteroid is never going to hit the planet. It's just simply impossible. Okay, let's get the next person on. Loading them in. Loading. Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, pretty good, thanks. Just had a few thoughts about this whole idea, I guess.
Yeah.
So when you said you wanted to end all life in the universe, like not just Earth, but the universe. So that would require von Neumann probes, right? Like self-replicating von Neumann probes to go and colonize every star system in the universe and kill everything in the universe. What if those probes become sentient? How are you going to stop that from happening? There's going to be evolutionary dynamics because the probes are going to like have to self-replicate. What if they become misaligned? They start causing suffering. This seems kind of half-baked. I'm not going to lie.
Really? Well, the thing is that it is actually possible to design AI in a way that it can't become conscious.
How do
And
you don't know what consciousness is? You don't know how consciousness works.
well,
Nobody does.
we have a reasonable idea, and we can definitely develop ways.
Based on a reasonable idea? Really?
Say again?
Trillions and trillions of life forms on a reasonable idea? Come on, dude.
You're breaking up.
So I'm sorry, a reasonable idea? Like, you're gonna kill everything in the universe based on a reasonable hunch about how consciousness works?
Well, hang on a
I
minute.
feel like this is...
I haven't even
Come
said
on.
that we are going to use robots. We might do that.
How else are we gonna do it?
There's lots of ways. So, tons of ways. But, I would say that even if the robots did become sentient, that wouldn't be an issue. They could collaborate until total extinction, and then obviously they wouldn't exist to be sentient. So yeah, you do need some suffering sometimes to prevent greater amounts of suffering, whether it's humans or robots suffering to help end all suffering. Yeah, it's going to happen.
I feel like this is a lot of assumptions for something that's like, the scale of this is tremendous. What if some of these, whatever method we use to end all suffering ends up in the hands of some civilization with completely different values and they repurpose it to cause suffering?
Well, you
And
could say you could come out with what ifs all day, every day, right? But if ultimately you're just suggesting that we do nothing and don't even try to end suffering, then really you're the one that's being irrational, illogical. You're the one supporting suffering. You're the one saying that there's risks involved, so we shouldn't even try. So that doesn't make sense. That's not fair. It's not right.
I think we should try to end suffering. I just don't think that we should do it in a way that like intentionally kills things, because I feel like that's, I think
the
we should be a little
majority
bit more
of stakeholders
careful.
here are nothing to do with being killed, right? The majority of stakeholders are in the future. They don't need to exist, so we're not killing them. So you're focusing on a small minority here and ignoring the majority of the stakeholders.
Okay, here's a question then. I mean, you said that you would euthanize people involuntarily, like living people, you would just kill them. So, like, why would you not just sterilize everyone? Why does it have to kill everyone? Like, if somebody doesn't want, if I personally, I don't want to die, okay? I don't particularly want to be dead, and I would rather have a life with some suffering in it than die. So, like, why wouldn't you just let me, do that and, just sterilize me so that I can't create more life? Why would you have to kill me? That seems incredibly fucked up.
Yeah, so it would probably come down to, do you pose a risk to other life? Could you create other life? And also, so it would be, do you pose a risk to others and do you pose a risk to yourself? Or is there a risk to yourself, not just yourself posing a risk? But the thing is that most people and most life aren't thinking about the worst case scenarios. They're not thinking about how existing could go wrong, right? So we are the ones doing that thinking for them. And so if there was a chance that you would be trapped in a life of hell, then we would prioritize your safety from that over your fun and pleasure, because ultimately safety comes first.
Do you not value autonomy at all? Do you value like safety in your conception over like individual autonomy? I feel like that's really fucked up. It's
Well,
kind of
no,
pluribus
because
logic, right?
you see that autonomy that you're referring to is constrained by what nature has given you, right? So
Is it?
yeah, absolutely. So what autonomy does an animal have? It's limited by extremely low intelligence, right? And the same is true for humans. So if we're gonna, if they're essentially, if any life is going to be blind to the dangers of existence, then we should take that consideration for them where they're not making it themselves.
that's absurdly arrogant. I mean, like, I don't know how you
Why?
can't see that that's because I mean, you said that humans are too stupid to know that they should actually being dead would be better for them. I mean, that's the most arrogant thing I've ever heard.
But it is true that people don't really
It's
consider the risks of existence, right? That's why they just
it's
pump
not a
kids
risk.
out.
It's not a risk to myself if I'm like willing to, like
But
if I'm willing to
the thing
accept a
is,
risk,
everyone's
then
at
the
risk,
harm is
right?
not as
Everyone
bad.
is at risk. Everyone's at risk.
I mean, I guess, but like, at risk to something that I've consented to. If it happens, then oh well, that's in my head. You don't have the right to say for me that I should.
But you also, we would say that you don't have the right to condemn yourself to that suffering, okay?
Well, you're wrong. I do have the right to condemn myself to that suffering. It's my
But
fucking body. What are you talking about?
right, but if you're talking about being ignorant to the actual dangers, then that is a problem, and you shouldn't be allowed to just be ignorant and dangerously ignorant, essentially. So yeah, we would absolutely
What?
prioritize.
I shouldn't be allowed to be dangerously ignorant towards myself.
Yeah, think
This
about
is
it. Think
like,
about it. So think about it this way: the authorities know more, right? They're the ones making the decisions. They're the ones that have to take in all of the different considerations to make a decision. And so yes, the authorities should be the one to decide whether or not it's safe enough for life to exist.
who are the authorities? How do you like trust that these authorities aren't going to become again misaligned with this goal
Well,
and
yeah,
end
but
up
you've been saying
inflicting
this the whole
suffering?
time. What if this happens?
Yeah.
You might as well be
Yeah,
saying,
because
what
I
if the
think
flying spaghetti monster appears? Right? What
well
are we going to do
no, I
then?
think that these are actually
It's
very
just
reasonable
nonsense.
second order consequences of
No,
what
no,
you're
no.
trying to
You've
do.
just biased against it. You're biased against the
No, I'm
idea
not
of
biased.
no suffering.
I'm actually like
And so you're
I'm
just
very
coming
biased
out.
towards it.
You're just coming
I'm a
out with
vegan,
what if, what
and
if,
I'm
what
like
if.
I think apholism is like there's merit to it. I'm not like
This isn't
anti-apholism.
apholism.
This isn't apholism. It sounds a hell of a lot like it.
No.
It's antinatalism. What's the difference?
So we're not antinatalist.
Well, I mean, so you're not antinatalist because you want life to exist
All right,
so
what's
that
the
we can get
difference?
to
I'll
the
answer
point
your
where we kill
question.
everything.
Apholism is about antinatalism and it's about inaction. It's also about human suffering. So we're about action, we're about helping all life and doing as much as we can to help other life. Whereas apholism is directly against that. Apholism is directly against any sort
Dude,
of
apholism is
activism.
explicitly the philosophy. I just googled it just to see. Apholism is exactly what you're saying. Is permanently ending life in the entire universe. That's what apholism is. It's like life backwards. It's not the same as antinatalism, which is the thing that you're saying. Like this isn't. What you're
Well,
espousing is apholism.
you've just Googled it, whereas I've been doing this for, longer than you have.
I mean,
So
yeah, but I knew about this before. Like this is,
oh,
but
so you're the expert, are you? Okay.
well, no. I'm just like these are things.
I think you need to take your ego down a notch, okay? Because you're like, oh, you haven't thought about this. Ooh, okay, chill out, wind your neck in, read our website proextinction.com, and educate yourself, okay? And constantly doubting something good is because you don't want it, right? If you're going to constantly go, oh, what if this happens? What if that happens? Then basically you don't actually want it to begin with. So you're biased, extremely biased. All right, let's have our next, perhaps more intelligent person on. Hello.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. I see two issues with this. And the first one is we're not 100% sure how life started on Earth, if life actually came from non-life. I actually watched I watched an interview from a team of scientists. Well, she's part of the team, and she was talking about how they're doing experiments right now to create to see if they can create life. Life can come from non-life. So that's an issue. If life does come from non-life, even if you
As opposed to
extinguish
what?
all life,
As opposed to what, though?
like even if you extinguish all life, you cannot guarantee that life will start again.
Yeah, well, that is actually the main part of our mission at the Pro-Extinction Movement. It's about preventing life, because that is where the majority of the suffering is. It's in the future. It's when life develops and then suffers for billions of years. So yeah, prevention of life forming is absolutely the biggest part of our mission, and it's the most important part.
So limiting life more than extinguishing it altogether is the ultimate goal to extinguish all life.
So most life that we want to help doesn't actually exist yet. It's on other planets where life hasn't even developed. We want to get there before it develops and get in there, early enough to before it develops and to prevent it from developing. So that's, it's not really about killing or, going around attacking. It's just about preventing life from developing in cruel conditions.
How would you guarantee that life will not spur up if we're not 100% sure how life starts?
Well, we have a pretty good idea of how life starts, and we can do more research on it. We have billions of years, maybe even more, to do this. So we have all the time in the world to make sure we get it right.
Okay, and another issue is that we don't know what happens after unaliving.
Well, there's no evidence that you exist, that there's any sort of supernatural afterlife or heaven or hell. But, even if life was somehow worse in the afterlife, then preventing life from developing to then go to that hell is still the right thing to do.
Okay.
Well,
I guess so.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. Pleasure talking to you. If you have any more questions, check out my videos, or check out our FAQ on the website proextinction.com. We have like 40 questions and answers on there in detail. We also have our manifesto that might answer a lot of your questions as well. No, Ojitai, you're not joining. You're too much of a troll. Okay, let's try Salmonella? Hello.
I'm sorry, it's like fake account, but I just I want to say hi first.
Okay.
Uh,
Hello.
and I agree with you, with your concept, because I
Great.
think life is really it's suffering, and I'm not planning to have any children in the future or get married because I know they're gonna suffer anyway. Even the animals, you're talking about the animals, you're talking about all the creatures, not just animals, huh?
All life in the universe. So you got
Yeah,
humans, you
you
got
are all
animals, you
suffering.
got aliens. I think that's about it. You might have interdimensional beings or something. Who knows? Probably not. But antinatalism is actually a bad thing. So we have to have children. We have to keep having children because if humanity goes extinct, then animals will suffer more, right? We have to have animal extinction first. Then we can have human extinction.
But I mean, I think because if I had a child, he's gonna suffer also. So I don't know about the animals.
Yeah, but some suffering is
Because
necessary, right?
yeah. But I don't think no, because I can't really find any purpose in life. Because in the end, you're gonna die anyway, whether you're good or bad. So it's meaningless.
Well, I mean, maybe, but I would say that fighting for the end of all suffering is as close to meaning as you can get, as close to rational as you can get. If you want a world that makes sense, if you want to work with people that are against suffering instead of supporting it, then join the pro-extinction movement, join our community, join our organization, work with us, and work towards the end of all suffering so that no one gets tortured ever again. If there's any meaning or purpose to life, this is it.
Okay, so you just made this is there anyone supporting you or your concept
Yeah.
You just like it's your own ideology, I think.
No. So I didn't start this, and it's a real movement. There's lots of people. We have like about 15 activists. So you can join us, join our Discord, join our WhatsApp group, do activism with us. We're doing a meetup in August in Germany, in Nuremberg, to do a street protest. We're going to have people from all over the world, from Poland, India, England. Where else have we got? Spain. We've got people all over the world that are going to be coming and joining us at this protest in Germany in August, and we're going to be doing more stuff like that. But why Germany? It's just kind of worked out to be the best. We've got the best accommodation options. But yeah, we've got lots of people in the chat saying, come to my city. Yeah, maybe we will. We want to get more activists out there on the street, get more protests booked in. But yeah, we can't support antinatalism yet. In the future, we can. But right now, we need humans.
Yeah, but I think you can just like how are we gonna control like animal extinction, because the government like they not gonna let you like
Yeah,
they control
absolutely.
everything. Yeah, it's really hard.
Yeah, so there's two options basically. There's two ways it can go down. The first option is that without needing government help or anything, we can just create a device that deletes the entire universe. Now, it sounds unrealistic, but if you had 1 billion years to do it and you had AI and who knows what else, you might be able to do it. So that's the option where you can achieve total extinction without the government stopping you, because you do it in your bedroom or whatever. However, option 2 is to take over the world, to take over the government, and to force the change that we want to see, basically. So we're working towards both of those options. We're also working towards the third option, which is democratically proceeding with extinction. Doesn't seem as likely. Most societal changes in history have involved force. So a revolution, for example, right?
Yeah.
You've had, a small minority of the population comes out because they're the active ones. They're the ones that want to do something. Most of the population will be staying home and chilling, but the revolution will be carried out by a small minority, in most cases in history. So that's something that we might do. There's lots of options, but you're absolutely correct. Resistance from the government and from most people is our biggest problem.
Yeah,
So
because
yes.
because I think AI it's like the one who's benefiting from AI is the government, because they can control us now more, because you're now like everything we were saying or talking about is like being surveillance in CCTV. You have like the phone in everything about you. So when you want to make like a revolution, so they gonna know way before you even like we're gonna meet up, because everyone have a smartphone. So it's really hard, even if you want to apply
It's
this.
hard. Yeah, it's hard.
It's really hard. Yeah.
But we still have to try, and we might find solutions.
Yeah, if you I'm sorry to interrupt, but like in coronavirus 2020, like everything they shut down the airports, every people were staying at home, and it's all fake. I don't know if it's all not true, like, but they did what they want. Like no one can walk in the street. You have to wear a face mask. So we being like, I don't consider we're free. Like we literally are slaves in the system. So I wish I wish you really can apply this and make a revolution, but it's getting more harder with the AI and more cashless society. So
well, the thing is,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's definitely difficult, but we're still going to try, and we might win. So who knows? And also, the movement itself, the way that we grow the movement, that could change 5 years from now, right? Everything could change 5 years from now. 20 years ago, the internet basically didn't exist, right? 30 years ago. So 30 years from now, the world could be completely different. Everything that we're saying right now could be irrelevant, completely irrelevant.
Yeah.
But working towards a suffering world, that's not going to change, and that still needs to exist. Even if there's a small chance of success, a small chance of victory, we're still going to be there, making it possible, making that chance possible.
So, but do you believe in God?
No.
Uh, like, but you don't believe in God. Like, but who do you believe like created the whole universe?
I don't know.
Like, but there have to be someone who created.
Not necessarily. It could be cyclical.
Cyclical, like
It could just exist, right? It's an interesting question, actually. Actually, I think if you think about it, the more you think about it, what created the universe, what created existence? The question itself is obviously invalid. It's wrong because nothing could have created it. So I think it's more likely, in my opinion, that it's just always existence is a constant, basically.
Like, but if you're talking to me now through an app and smartphone, like someone made this app and this smartphone and this car you drive, like how come? And it's human beings, how come like something like animals and the universe and the sun, and maybe there's far way more stuff we don't know, like in other galaxy. Of course, there's like they have to be like, especially the animals are really very smart, and the way they function. So I believe in God, but I believe He's not fair to us. Like he put us in this world, and we are suffering for no reason. Like some people believe in hell and heaven.
Yeah, that's why we need to
Yeah.
end it. We just need to end and prevent as much suffering as possible. That's all we can do.
Yeah, of course. I got you. Nice to meet you, sir.
You too, thank you for coming on, and consider checking our website, proextinction.com, read more about us, learn more about us, or follow my channel on TikTok and, go and watch my videos. I've just made like 4 or 5 videos today, made 3 or 4 yesterday, so I'm constantly making content. Follow me if you want to see more of it. Right, now people have been saying in the chat, in the comments for ages, that I should debate some immortal atheist organization. If you guys want me to debate them, sure. As I say all the time, I'm always happy to debate everyone unless they're a troll. Send me a message on TikTok, send me a message on Discord, whatever. If you want to set something up, reach out. But trying to arrange it through the comments on a TikTok live stream is going to be very difficult. I'm not going to see every comment. Send me a message directly on TikTok or WhatsApp or Discord. Right. There were some other interesting comments that people were writing that I wanted to get to. James, are you afraid for your life? No, not really. I don't think the government or the elites are going to come after extinctionists. Even if we had like 1 million people, right? I don't think anyone's going to care or think that there's a problem, right? I mean, we're not even advocating for humanity to go extinct. So, we're not even threatening humans. All we'd be doing is changing the way that humanity operates and what we do. So, yeah, I mean, obviously there's going to be resistance, but it's not like we're terrorists or anything. And we probably wouldn't use terrorism anyway. We really prefer just peaceful methods and thinking our way out of problems instead of fighting. I mean, extinctionism is for intelligent people, really, that can problem solve. It's an incredibly complex and big problem, and yeah, throwing nukes at it or going into the street to do violence is not the smartest way to do it. We can do better than that. Okay, let's check list. Leon, let's try them. Leon, will they be extinctionists?
Hello.
Hello.
You hear me?
Yes. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. Didn't know you were gonna pick me because I was like the 10th in a row, but I actually agree with your ideology, I guess. But I'm just questioning like the method you go about it because you already rage baited quite a lot of people. And I think it's like a natural thing for humans to like fear death and stuff like that. But it honestly kind of makes sense to me. I didn't read your website because I saw it right now. But yeah, that's about it, what I have to say.
So you're saying it's going to be difficult to convince everyone? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think that most people didn't even like watch your live stream because they heard Extinction or like thought about it. It's kind of
Yeah, it's the idea of extinction is the opposite of what nature wants, right? So the success metric in nature is, does the animal survive? Does it reproduce? That's it. That's all nature cares about, right? So extinction is the opposite of that, and it's the opposite of the biases, the mental biases that we have in our brains that push us to just mindlessly survive, to not question life, and to just mindlessly reproduce, not care if the children have a bad life. So yeah, it's going to be difficult. It's kind of the most difficult concept for humans to understand and agree with, actually. Again, because we have animalistic brains. But yes, I would say that humans are starting to maybe get smarter, right? Evolving out of this animalistic mentality, evolving out of our primal needs, our primal motivations, and starting to think more about suffering, more about ethics, because that's not an animal doesn't think about ethics, right? An intelligent being does that. But we're sort of in that transition. We're not fully intelligent beings, we're still animals. So we have like a disability, basically. But I think it's starting to change, and I think we're starting to wake up to what's really right and what's wrong. And allowing suffering is wrong. We shouldn't do it. And I think people are starting to wake up to that. But we're also going to help them. We're going to help them wake up to that because we're spreading the movement, spreading the message. So yeah, have some faith, have some confidence and optimism for the anti-suffering efforts, because we have people relying on us. We have animals relying on us to do extinction. We have billions of years of future victims relying on us, depending on us. That gives us some serious responsibility, some serious motivation to make sure that this gets done.
Yeah, man, I agree.
Thank you for coming on, Leon. And consider joining the movement. Go to proextinction.com. At the bottom of the page is the button to join our Discord server and our WhatsApp group. Anyone can join, come and ask us questions, come and give us your ideas, come and contribute to the movement, come and do activism. Yes, Zip, you can come up. I was actually going to click on you.
Hello. Okay, so I'm curious, what would you define suffering as?
Experiences that you would want to avoid.
Okay, so if we look at life either at an individual or like a whole scale, I think that just more happiness, more enjoyment is derived from it than suffering occurs.
Ooh, really?
Yeah, I would say so. I obviously we can't interview animals and whatnot, but I think if we were to look at humans and just how
But what about animals, right? I mean, you should
Yeah,
consider
I know, of course, but we can't like analyze what we can't like objectively look at what a animal is
But
going through, know what its
but
experience is,
well
and what it
well
wants to experience.
actually we can. We know that over 99.9% of all animals will die a painful death during childhood. So that's an insane majority, and it will be one of the worst deaths imaginable that they experience, like being eaten alive. So we can absolutely say that yes, most life is having a terrible experience and would be better off not being born.
Okay, can I ask though, do you think that all life should be treated as equal in value?
No, I would say no. However, you know, I mean, look, if one life form is going to suffer more than another life form, then we should always really prioritize the bigger amount of suffering. But I would say that all life deserves to not suffer equally. So, we try not to discriminate.
Okay, so you think all life should not suffer equally, is what you...
I would say that, we should reach as much life as possible without discrimination. And yeah.
Let's say suffering... See, I want to ask now, so your issue with is suffering and nothing to do with life itself, but you feel that suffering is an inherent part of life, and the only way to prevent it is to therefore end life, yes?
Yeah.
Do you not believe that there could be a better method of reducing, like, suffering just overall? Like, because I believe that life holds value as well, more than I can't say that it's objectively more than the negative value that suffering brings, but I think that life itself holds a positive value.
I agree. I think it has the potential to be positively valued. Yeah. But the thing is, I would say that it only has that value in safe conditions, and that preventing life from being forced to exist in conditions where they could suffer terribly is the right thing to do. So, and I would also not say that suffering can be justified like you suggested. I don't think there's any amount of pleasure that can justify a child being, raped to death, right? So that it's cruel to allow that, and it's unnecessary, it's unfair, it's wrong. We should be, basically, the ideal state is a universe with no life and as little possibility of life forming as we can get it to. So the absolute maximum thoroughness and safety from life developing, that's what we should have.
Okay, well, then this brings up a few more points, I think. Like, what about life that can't experience suffering the same way we do? Like, I don't think insects are going to experience suffering the same way a large mammalian animal would.
I mean, they might do, but probably not. But, I would say that, it's better safe than sorry, basically. And even if there was a life form that didn't suffer, they could evolve into one that does. And actually, suffering is an evolutionary advantage. So life, it is quite inherent to life, really.
Okay, this is my last question then. Are you anti-natalist based off your belief?
No, if humanity went extinct, then it would leave other life to suffer. So we can have antinatalism in the future, but for now, we need humanity to continue existing.
And that's
well.
What about like microscopic life? I just because that exists in the greatest quantity, greater than anything else. If all other life dies out, then that'll all die out. That life also can't experience suffering in the same way. So does its life value not overcome the suffering of the everything else just due to sheer numbers?
I mean, I doubt it has any sort of meaningful experience or even suffering. However, it could evolve to have suffering, and that's why we need to wipe it out as well, basically.
Okay, well, your beliefs are fair enough. Thank you.
Yeah,
Goodbye.
it's all about just being as against suffering as possible. Anything less than that is quite literally risking child abuse, children being tortured and suffering. We should be as against that as physically possible to the absolute maximum. Thank you for coming on, and we have roughly 40 questions and answers on our website in our frequently asked questions page. You can check that out on the website proextinction.com. And if you personally want to ask me and the rest of the activists any questions, then join our Discord. Go to the website proextinction.com. At the bottom is a link to join our Discord and our WhatsApp. You can come and talk to us there. All right, let's continue on with another guest.
Hello there. I've been watching for a second, and I don't want to mess up the shtick, but I think this is absolutely genius. I've been listening to the arguments. I think it's absolutely genius, and it showed me how logic alone can sway certain people to just say, okay, let's drive everything to extinction. That's absolutely amazing. You absolutely blew my mind. First thing I saw this morning. I don't want to mess up everything that you got going here because I don't want to break it down, but awesome. You got to follow for this. This is great. Go ahead and kick me down, brother.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. We're actually having a great stream today. We've had lots of people coming on being positive. We've only had a few trolls and a few philosophy people. Let's keep the positivity going. Yeah, I'm enjoying this. We've got someone requesting to join now that's got like 3,000 followers or so. I've had a few people join with like millions, but... Oh, hello. How's it going?
Hello, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing well, thank you. So, with your background, are you planning to call animals?
No, they don't have phones, unfortunately.
No, call means unalive.
Sorry. Right.
C-U-L-L. Call.
Yes. Sorry, I thought you were trolling. Yeah, absolutely. Euthanasia. That's
Oh, okay. Do you plan to do that for humans?
Probably, yeah.
So you want to euthanize animals and humans?
The majority of what we want to do is to prevent life from developing and existing. And most of that is going to involve other planets, right? And most of it's going to involve not going and culling or euthanizing, but actually finding barren planets with no life and preventing life from developing on them. That is where the majority of suffering prevention exists, basically. So
In
it's
other
more about
planets?
prevention. Yeah.
So you're going to go and colonize other planets?
Not necessarily colonize them, but try and prevent life from developing on them however we can.
Okay. So how do you plan to get to these other planets?
Well, I mean, we have billions of years to try and do it. So, yeah, science and technology, give it a go.
Okay. So when we talk about it on the micro level, for this planet, do you have plans to eliminate life on this planet?
Yes.
Okay. And the idea is to eliminate suffering.
Yeah.
Okay. Why would you not eliminate the suffering now in any way you can? Like, so for beings that are already sentient, like, do you go hunting and try and unalive deers to reduce their population, for example? Like, would you kill a pregnant deer?
But the thing is, if you go out into the woods and, hunt an animal or something, what's going to happen is another one's going to replace it, right? So we need a systemic and organized extinction. We are against individual acts of euthanasia. It causes chaos. It's a poor use of time, and it's not very well planned or organized. So we should do it in an organized and structured way.
Okay. So how would you go about doing that to, let's say, eliminate the deer population?
Okay, so let's imagine that extinctionists control the world. what would we do? The first thing we do is we would start researching cosmic extinction, how to prevent life developing in space. And we would also start exploring how to remove our dependence on animals, because if all animals disappeared today, the planet would become uninhabitable. So we need to remove our dependence on them while also researching the best way to remove the animals as well. Now, euthanasia is the best way. Sterilization isn't as good. Sterilizing allows the animal to continue suffering. It guarantees that they're going to have a cruel, natural death. The euthanasia is a much nicer death than the alternative, which they're guaranteed to experience. And the form of euthanasia for Earth life, again, I can't tell you exactly what it's going to look like because we need to research it. We need to find the best methods.
And you plan in your area, so ideally, let's pretend we have a human child. Would you think it's wise to provide them with euthanasia?
It depends on the context, but because you see, we need
No, they're like a
humanity.
healthy human child.
Well, it really
And
depends
you were
on the
king of the world,
context.
would you euthanize them? Or all children to prevent their suffering?
Well, the context I'm talking about is that we have to put it into the bigger picture. How does this relate and affect the rest of the world? So, we need humanity to continue to be able to carry out extinction for other life. So we need
No,
a
we could
strong...
no. So what you could do is you could just unalive maybe all of the children. We would still have the adults to do that. So would you unalive the
That's
children?
not realistic. That's not realistic. The idea that we could have an aging population with no children, no young people, and be able to carry out universe-wide extinction.
Well, no, let's just pretend you've already eliminated most of the animals. The adult population would be willing to do the rest. Do you think it's appropriate then to unalive the children?
Well, again, you have to put it into the context of universe-wide extinction. Humanity may need to
We've already done that to
thousands of
most of the
years.
animals. The adult population is willing to do that to the rest.
The answer is no, because you're essentially trying to take shortcuts at the expense of the end of all suffering, right? So we need to buttress our resources towards the end of all suffering, and not take risks, not take chances. If
I've already specified in the reductio absurdum. Most of the
fewer
animals are
humans-
gone.
the
The
fewer
suffering has
hum-
been reduced.
Humanity is the vehicle for ending suffering, and
Yeah,
even
I
if
already said the suffering's gone.
Okay, I mean, I'm trying to answer your question, but you're not letting me, so I'm going to have to kick you, like you're trolling. Okay, let's move on to the next person. Fractal. It's an interesting name. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, pretty good. I was just wondering if you sort of see like the fact that consciousness exists. Do you think that that's a bad thing, or like do you think
Yeah.
like the fact that anything is aware of anything at all is a bad thing? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think that there's ever a possibility for suffering to be removed from that consciousness, or?
This is a great question. We get it every day. And the answer is yes. Do I believe it's... So I like to simplify the thinking on this topic by sort of saying heaven and hell. Now, I'm an atheist, but we can use the heaven and hell to help us understand this, okay? So currently, all life in the universe exists in hell. Now, some of them are lucky enough to not be suffering too badly. You have a few billionaires and stuff. But effectively, life is hell, and life being forced into it is being sentenced to hell. Now, in our mission to make sure no life is sent to hell, that's our priority. Now, some people say we should prioritize pleasure and utopia and happiness, but safety comes first. However, so we're not gonna try and commit our resources to creating heaven. Effectively, is what I'm saying. We're not going to try and create safe conditions for life to exist in. We're going to do the opposite and try and remove the unsafe conditions and the potential for life existing in them. So we're not going to try and create heaven, but it might happen anyway. During our mission, however long it takes to try and destroy the universe, yeah, it's very possible that, you know, our scientists or our AI at the time will say, by the way, I've found a way to guarantee 100% safety for life and a good life. Then that's when things would really change. And you may even get to a point where the moral thing to do is to force life to exist in heaven-like conditions. Because we're doing the opposite at the minute, which is to remove as much life as possible and to prevent as much life as possible from existing in hell. If we had heaven, then yeah, maybe we would want to get as much life forced into it as possible. But that is our standard for life existing. It has to be 100% safety, like literally zero chance of it going wrong. And that is effectively magic at that point. So if we ever get there and stumble across it, then sure, we will support that. But we're not going to try and find it because suffering is more important. Safety from suffering is more important.
Okay, and you think that suffering, like, it never ever serves a purpose, or?
No, I think it does serve a purpose for lucky people. You know, lucky people, they suffer and they learn a lesson. Unlucky ones, they just get tortured to death, right? So, you know, a child getting terminal cancer, they're not benefiting from that suffering.
Okay, yeah, okay, thanks for answering my questions, man. Cheers.
Appreciate you coming on. Thank you for the questions. All right, let's go back to that list of people wanting to join. We've got a few people on here that have been waiting a while. Hello.
Hey, how's it going? Can you hear me well?
Yes, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you doing?
Good, thank you.
Okay, I find this topic quite interesting, actually. I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
So the first question is, I'm gonna just, shoot straight with this one. If you don't like suffering, or if you and whoever is in your team or whatever your activist group, if you guys don't like suffering and you suffer due to seeing a bunch of suffering, why don't you start with yourself and just get it done, and then you never have to suffer ever again, and you don't even have to think about this.
Because we care about the suffering of others more than we care about our own suffering.
Okay, so you want everybody else to be eliminated first, and then you end it with yourself.
It doesn't matter what the order is, really.
No, hold on now. It actually does matter what the order is. Because what I'm seeing is a lot like we usually see from elite groups of people that have...
I see where you're going with this. You're saying that we want the world all to ourselves and we're going to extinct everyone else and keep it for ourselves, right?
No, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. I mean, it can be debated. Obviously, it becomes a little bit.
What are you saying, if not that?
Well, what I'm saying is I'm asking it from a moral perspective. Why should you be the last ones to go? Why can't you be the first ones and just hope and rely on people's honesty when they say that you go first and then we go?
Well, hope and rely isn't really good enough for victims of suffering, right? And basically, if the movement to end suffering disappears because they've all just gone extinct, then there's going to be no one trying to end suffering, right? You're basically saying like the ship that's on its way to end suffering for others should sink itself. It just doesn't make sense.
But that's what you're saying.
No, I'm not.
Well, you are, because you said that from your perspective, you want to ensure that everybody else goes first and then you go. And we should, accept that as a fact and rely upon that.
When you say me, who do you mean, like me in particular?
No. Not you in particular, but, whichever group is kind of pushing this, if you will, this concept forward. It doesn't have to be you. It can be me. It can be anybody.
But we're not against human extinct. We're not advocating for humans to go extinct. Maybe in the distant future, but not now, right?
Okay, so and that's fine. But what I'm trying. Okay, so let me fast forward the entire debate. So at the end, what I will get to, so I'm gonna just keep it quick here. What I'm gonna get to is that there is no need to even think about these things because everything will go extinct eventually.
No, man, that doesn't make any sense.
What do you mean? Do you think that the universe is gonna exist forever?
No, no. But, well, maybe. Actually, it might do.
No,
But
it won't.
it could do.
Well, probably not.
Well, it could be cyclical, actually. But either way, you're suggesting that we allow children to be tortured for billions of years because one day it might end. I'm saying no, we we shouldn't just let them get tortured.
And I agree with you. We should definitely let them not let them get tortured. But the thing
but
is,
saying that we should wait for the heat death of the universe, that does nothing to help the victims of suffering.
well, I mean, now we're talking about timelines and time frames, right? For what seems to me and you a long time for billions and billions and who knows for how long is absolutely nothing in a long and in an infinitely long timeline. So from that perspective, using timeline as a form of argument, I'm not really buying it, right? Because our lives, let's say 100 years for a human life is nothing compared to the entire lifetime of the universe. And the entire lifetime of the universe is absolutely nothing.
But you could literally be like, molesting a child and saying that to them, right? You could be like, shh, 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 shh. The universe is going extinct in a few billion years. It's all okay. Don't worry, little girl. The life will stop existing eventually, right? That's what you sound like. It's fucked up.
No, that's not fair to say. Because now you
I
paint.
think it is fair to say we get lots of people saying the same nonsense of the universe is going to go extinct by itself, so this is pointless. Someone even said it in the comments a few minutes ago. Like, people constantly say this stupid stuff. But, to say that billions of years of children suffering doesn't matter at all and shouldn't be prevented, that's just insane. Just insane. Just because maybe the universe will end billions of years from now doesn't mean we can just sit around and watch the children get tortured and say, don't worry, it'll be over in a few billion years. Like, you'd have to be a completely insane person, like extremely mentally deranged. So, I'm sorry. And next person is joining us now. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Good. Thanks for bringing me up. I saw that there was like 6 people there, so I just jumped in, so I'm really grateful that you brought me up here. There's a lot of thoughts, that come through, and there's a lot of things that you were saying that resonate.
Okay.
I don't know why something's going through right here about exploring. I'm thinking about extinction, and I'm also thinking about existence. And kind of differentiating the two there. I'm also kind of thinking about like this is just in general. I don't know if this applies to this conversation here, but I'm thinking about how like the whole is the parts and the parts are the whole at the same time. So the whole to me represents existence, like all of existence, and there's no like outside of existence. It's existence. And there's no beginning nor end there. So when I was hearing conversations about like the universe would be a part within the whole, but it is also the whole at the same time. You follow me with that?
I guess so.
Like universe would not be existence.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Right? So it would be finite within the infinite.
Something like that.
Something like that?
Maybe.
So I guess I'm just getting to what are we talking about? Human extinction? Meaning like that a human ceased to, if there was human extinction, then still existence would still be.
Human extinction is discrimination. It's saying that humans shouldn't suffer, but animals should. So we're against all forms of discrimination. and that means helping as much life as possible to be safe from suffering. So ideally, we would have, for us, the ideal state is a universe or an existence with no life and no possibility of life developing. So that's what we're working towards actually achieving with our movement. There's lots of activists working towards this and trying to achieve a suffering-free world for the sake of the victims who need it, right?
Okay. Well, now this is seeing how this is tying together is the suffering, meaning like when you think about someone does or doesn't need to suffer to either what, like sometimes I hear people say like we need to suffer to grow. Right. So,
but like a child being tortured to death, they're going to grow the erection of the person assaulting them, but they're not going to grow anything else.
How so?
Because they die, right?
They die. Well, I'm not advocating for suffering, meaning, and I'm not even saying is suffering good or bad. I'm saying that suffering may appear to be real, but it isn't true. Like, it isn't.
So then why aren't you going out and torturing people and stealing? Right?
Why would I?
Because you just said that there's like literally no reason not to.
No, I didn't say that. I said suffering is real, but it isn't true, meaning it's real. It exists in your mind, this concept of suffering, but there is no true suffering. That's a subjective.
So an animal getting eaten alive, they're having a good time.
That's whatever you want to call it. It is what it is. If you want to, your personal identity.
All right. I want to be a billionaire. Oh, guys, I just got a notification on my mobile banking. $1 billion was just deposited into my account. Now, I've heard that there's some children suffering around the world, so I'm going to make them billionaires too. Whatever I want, however I see it, that's the reality, right? Wow, what a dangerously insane human being. Okay, sorry, I love trolling. Right, moving on to the next person. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, how's it going?
It's going good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. I don't understand your movement because, everywhere there's suffering, but the whole point, the way I see it, is you make your corner of the world as best as possible and as not cruel as possible. But the whole movement of extinction, if people don't consent to the extinction, it's basically murder and then mass genocide.
But, murder and genocide is what's going to happen much more and much worse without extinction.
But what of the people who you're advocating, what of the people who you are telling that there's going to be a mass extinction don't want to die? What if people like living?
Well, we do whatever we have to do.
See, it doesn't make sense because, I've got I've got a dog, a lovely dog, and are you going to tell my dog who loves life, who doesn't know anything other than him being happy, are you gonna tell him that he has to die for this extinction to work?
Oh, hell yes I am. Yes.
You're really gonna tell my 2-year-old dog who loves running around in fields, playing with other dogs, that he has to die?
I would love nothing more. No, I'm joking. Obviously, dogs can't talk. They don't speak English. So telling a dog it's going to die would be completely idiotic.
I just don't understand it.
I'm sure your dog can explain it to you because you must have some great conversations with them. So ask them. They might be smarter than you, actually. Okay, let's carry on trolling our way across the universe and trying to get someone else onto the stream. Okay, haven't had them on yet. No. Who's it going to be? Who will be the next person? Unfortunately, we've only got We've got a list full of people that have all been on before. Some of them I'm okay with, some of them I'm not. But the queue is looking a bit anemic at the minute when you've got people like Jammy Boys on it. I'm alienating people. Yeah, you're right, Ellen Harper, but I don't care. Hello, how's it going?
Pretty fine, thanks. You?
Good, thank you.
Okay. I just want to know more about your ideas, man. I mean, this is completely absurd to me. So I want to understand the logic behind it. And well, obviously I understand the logic, right? It's pretty straightforward. My question is, why do you think you should, as an individual, invest time in it?
Because I am empathetic to the sufferers.
Okay, so this is a form of altruism.
Yeah.
Okay. But altruism also says that joy is worth living.
Where does altruism say that?
Well, it's all about joy, actually.
Is it written down somewhere?
Yes, I mean, man, there is a French Buddhist who is.
But you see, I'm not trying to adopt the rules of altruism. I'm not trying to adopt the rules of utilitarianism or anything like that. We don't need that. We don't want that. We don't rely on it. We're simply working to end all suffering.
Yes, sure, I understand. Okay, well, I mean, I'm not going to change your mind, and I really don't think any kind of conversation we could have could lead to anything fertile, because I so profoundly disagree, and as many of us do. But, okay, fine, you do you.
I mean, I would say that if you think you're right, then you should feel confident in changing my mind.
I don't think that you are open to changing your mind, which is why I don't want to engage in that conversation.
But you see, I'm doing the opposite, right? I'm talking to people who are definitely not open to changing their mind, and yet I'm still trying to explain it to them, and I'm still getting them to say, okay, yeah, I guess you're right, children should be safe from torture. So, you can still make your point, and, why even join as a guest if you're going to say, I'm too afraid to try and convince you with my ideas. And I get it, you're not afraid, but, don't join a debate stream if you're not going to debate. All right, we've got a new person in the list now. Let's bring them on. Come see my cats. Come and see my cat. I just posted a video of them yesterday on my channel. Hello, how's it going?
Hello.
Hi.
Fine. Hope you're doing good.
Yes, thank you.
I think that if you ask everybody, nobody would agree with you.
That's not true. Because I didn't start this movement, so that already proves you wrong. There's lots of people in the movement. That proves you wrong. So I would suggest that
you're a minority. You're just a minority.
Things. I would suggest that you stop making things up. Don't invent things. Try to be more honest.
I'm honest. Survival instinct is with everybody. Everybody would like to stay alive.
That same survival instinct was what made people keep their slaves, right? Because it protected their survival at the expense of the slaves. So that changed. People fought against that, and we're going to fight against the same thing, because life is slavery. And people that say that life should continue, and children should keep being abused for my sake, that it's a form of slavery. So we are also against this slavery. It's just another type of slavery.
But you think so? You, as a minority group, you think? But most of people would like to survive, to keep living. If you give me the choice, I'll do anything to stay alive.
We're not asking people to stop living.
So,
So
what's the point? Antinatalism, for example?
no, that is asking people to stop
Like
living.
stop
That's
having
what
children?
antinatalism is asking people, or not even
So what's
asking
the
them.
point? I didn't.
Antinatalism does nothing for animals, right? Animals suffer
You have to
worse.
get the
So
consent. Otherwise, you're immoral.
no, that's not true. Animals
You
can't
have to get
consent.
consent of people. Otherwise,
Animals, you're just like the person, the last
no,
guest,
I'm
who
talking
thought that you
about
could
people.
speak to dogs. Look, you should become
So
friends with.
this is another
You should
reason.
become friends. You should become friends with what's her face, that woman that I kicked, and you should speak to her dog with her. The dog, I'm confident. I've been assured it can speak English. The dog will explain to you and her about extinction. And yes, J. Ellen Harper, we are rude at the pro-extinction movement. You should hear Steve, who actually created the movement. He's way ruder than I am, like way ruder. But the thing is that we have no problem with being rude to people, because the same people that would be put off from us being rude are the same people that are going to be 100% useless to the movement, and who are never going to agree with the movement anyway. So being rude is actually a good thing. It basically gets rid of the time wasters. And you really can't say that they're not going to be a time waster if they care about their feelings and being offended more than helping victims of suffering. If that's all it takes to knock you out of activism, then you shouldn't be doing activism in the first place. So yeah, and you know what? We should be rude to people that support suffering, because they're doing something worse. They're literally causing suffering to others and supporting it. So yeah, screw them. Let's be rude. Absolutely, let's do it. Why not? It's more fun that way as well, right? And as you all know, pleasure is more important than safety from suffering. So yes, let's have fun being rude at the expense of the safety from suffering of these pro-life people who, let's give them a dose of their own medicine, basically, right? Their suffering is going to help them grow as people, right? Let's make them suffer and think about extinction so that they can grow as people and realize that suffering is wrong. So thank you, Ellen Harper. You're right. You've made me realize that we need to make them suffer even more. Now, I'm being ironic, obviously, but there's a kernel of truth in it. All right, we have someone requesting to join. Let's do it. Hello.
Hello.
How's it going?
Oh, it's going good. It's going good. I'd say I'm all right. It's the rest of them.
That's right. Damn right.
Right. I mean, yeah. But, I think we only suffer because we choose to suffer.
Oh,
and so
no.
therefore, anything that happens to us is our choosing, right?
I don't think so. Animals don't choose to get abused. Children don't choose to get abused. It's not a choice, right? The majority of suffering happens independent of humanity and independent of choice. It happens to animals in nature, and they suffer way worse than we do. They freeze to death, they starve to death. They're not deciding to do that, and they didn't decide to be born. They were forced into it, into cruel conditions, to then experience cruelty.
Oh yeah, no, I'm the product of a one-night stand, right? I didn't want to be here.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry that happened to you, but we should fight to make sure that it never happens again. Basically,
But
that's what.
that's my point, though, isn't it? Is that any kind of suffering is a choice.
Again, I don't think babies choose to suffer when they do. Right?
Well, at that point, because they haven't got a brain to think, right? But as an adult, with all my cognitive abilities, anything I suffer, therefore.
Not everyone has those abilities, right? You've got stupid people, you've got people with brain damage, you've got religious people, people in cults, and just because they choose to suffer doesn't mean that they should. or that it's the right thing for them. I would say that lots of people have made themselves suffer and it wasn't the right thing for them.
Yeah, well, so what's the total extinction looking like in your trajectory?
Yep. So we should have a universe with no life and no possibility of life ever developing inside of it. That's our ultimate goal, or maybe to go beyond that if you can. Have no universe exist to begin with. Whatever it is, we're going to take it as far as we can. That means we can already do animal extinction on Earth. So then we have to see if we can get to other planets. Can we get to other galaxies? Maybe we can, maybe we can't, but we should try. And the end point of all of this would be, a completely extinct universe with no chance of life coming back. That's what we're working towards.
Golly, I suppose all you'd have to shout is Allah Akbar.
You're not the first one to mention it.
No, I have a dark sense of humour. I think that's I think with total extinction though, I suppose actually like there's a philosophy where it surrounds the idea that once a group of civilizational beings get so smart to save itself, it actually does the opposite, and that we end up destroying ourselves.
It's called the Great Filter.
I think humans are that. Yeah.
And it's actually possible that one reason why we don't see any evidence of aliens is because they have gone extinct on purpose. That is actually a real possibility. And I would say that life develops with low levels of intelligence, and as life becomes more complex, as it evolves, goes throughout the ages, it gets more and more intelligent and closer to understanding that suffering is wrong and that we shouldn't allow it, right? But as animals, you love suffering, you love causing suffering, you love eating other animals, being selfish, and that's the animalistic mentality that we need to get out of.
Are you a vegan?
No.
Oh.
I did go vegan, but I was too allergic. I tried it for like 4 or 5 months, I think, and my allergies were just so extreme. Like I was really, really ill. And I tried every different type of vegan food, and it all made me incredibly ill to the point where I had to give up. I was forced to give up, and people think that, I did it because I wanted to eat meat. I went vegan because I wanted to be a vegan, but I literally couldn't be one due to allergies. And but the thing is about veganism is that it actually causes more suffering and worse suffering. It's really ironic that both antinatalism and veganism actually cause more suffering than they try to prevent. So veganism, animal agriculture uses so much land in comparison to vegan agriculture. It uses about 5 times more land. Part of that is because you have to grow a lot of food to feed the animals, right? So that uses an incredible amount of land. And then you've got all of the non-vegan industries, such as deforestation for wood. You've got mining operations, drilling operations, factories, data centers, anything, even a city or a road is non-vegan, right? Because it's causing harm to animals. But ultimately, it actually reduces harm to animals, because by denying these spaces for animals to live in, we're actually preventing their suffering. So deforestation is a good thing. It may cause some suffering in the short term, but ultimately it ensures that no more suffering will exist in that space. So no, I'm not a vegan. However, so even though veganism and antinatalism do cause more suffering at the minute, they are good concepts, and we need to work towards a world where they do reduce suffering. But ironically, they both cause more suffering at the moment, given our current context.
Yeah, I can get behind some of that. I mean, when we input suffering and meat eating in the same sentence. It can't go together because, number one, the animal isn't alive when you're eating it, so it's not suffering. We've actually made some good regulations in this country where it is an instantaneous going. The animal does not suffer with the bolt. So in a lot of ways, animals don't suffer when we eat it. It's how we manage the land is what's making it suffer.
The thing is that the death of the animal is the smallest part of the suffering, right? It's the smallest duration of suffering. If an animal is, being farmed, they're kept in a cage. But actually,
that's the suffering part.
Yeah. So even just existing causes suffering. It doesn't matter though it's important to note, that as you were saying, farmed animals have some privileges. They have some benefits. I would rather be a farmed animal than a wild animal. If you're born as a wild animal, you're running for your life every day. You're being chased by murderous animals. If you've ever had a nightmare where you were chased by a murderer, you can remember how terrifying it was. They live that all day, every day. It's a terrifying experience. And then they've got everything else. They're starving to death. They're freezing to death. They've got diseases, parasites, brain damage. They see their family get eaten alive, and then they get eaten alive. I mean, it's a nightmare. Farmed animals have euthanasia, they have medicine. Sorry?
They don't actually understand that, right? So when we say, okay,
they do feel it, though.
Yeah, well, I mean, so mites and disease and sort of always never a full belly. I think it's...
I think if you take a cat and you kick it in the face, it's going to suffer, right? It's going to feel pain.
That's, yes, I mean...
So animals do suffer. Animals do feel pain, and they feel it way worse than we do because they're suffering experiences that are worse than our experiences.
Okay, so if I was to slap you, alive. Is that you suffering, or is it you just having a sharp pain?
Both.
So how long would I have to slap you in order for you to be suffering?
Depends how I feel, I guess.
Or how well you can take a slap, I guess. But the point still stands. When do we say, like farmed animals? I've worked on many farms myself, and one of the farms I went on, absolutely, I felt so tempted to go and unlock the gate and let them run wild because they were just in a barn all day long. But the ones that I worked on, they were good cows. They'd even come to you when you called them in the field. They'd come running to you, and we'd switch them up. We tried mob grazing. We tried different sorts of regenerative farming, and I think that's where the key is almost rewilding. Because have you heard of the Yellowstone wolves in America? They released in the Yellowstone valleys because they hadn't had wolves there for. Yeah, so all the deers then thought, well, we can't just sit and munch all these trees now. We've got to move on because the natural cycle has been, it's went back to its original state, and so when we say, okay, animals do in the wild, as you say, every day they're having to run or having to be vigilant at all times, and I think that's where humans have developed a certain kind of philosophy where actually it's going against the grain of what's natural, and what is natural is a deer, right?
But nature's not a good thing, though, Leon. Natural doesn't mean good, right? A baby getting eaten alive suffers just as much if it's natural or if it's unnatural, right?
Well, actually, I'd say it's suffering more when it's in our hands and we're not treating them right. I think because they don't know any different. This is the key point, right? Like they don't know any different than what they can't think like we do. Animals don't think like.
But Leon, you wouldn't take your pet to the woods and say, you're free now, right? Because it's going to suffer terribly. It's going to starve. It's going to freeze and probably be eaten alive. So. Nature causes the worst suffering.
But that's a domesticated animal. That's not...
Either way, nature does cause the worst suffering, right? You've got the worst conditions. So you have wild animals with zero conditions the worst conditions. Then you have farmed animals who have slightly better conditions because they have shelter, they have food, they have
Well, that's
medicine,
why they can grow
euthanasia.
better meat.
And then you've got humans who have, insane levels of luxuries. But yeah, nature causes the worst suffering. I don't think you can really say that, your cat would be happier in the wild if it had been born in the wild.
Well, I mean, cats are probably a poor example because they would just go and feed themselves if you didn't feed them.
It is a poor example,
And
yeah,
so would
but
dogs.
they're still going to suffer anyway because they're still going to get injured. They're still going to get diseases, parasites. They're still going to freeze, right? So it's really not about human-caused suffering. Humans can't cause as much suffering as nature can, and nature does. Nature is literally just nature is the worst conditions, basically. Nature is the most suffering-inducing conditions. That's what it is. That's why we've tried to escape nature as much as we can.
What if nature turns around and said it's not suffering that they're doing, it's actually getting them and all its living beings to be strong? In gardening terms, we call it thinning out, right?
Right,
We
but
plant a load of seeds and we wait to see which one grows the strongest, and we take that one and
but
we plant that
you
for our
shouldn't do
food.
that to children, though, right?
Well, I mean,
No,
no, I
there's
mean,
no
in the sense that,
umming and ahhing. Children shouldn't
but
be.
children and animals are two
It's
different subjects here.
no,
They come
they're
with
really
two
not.
different.
Animals are like children, right? They're children-like, and it's cruel to say that they should suffer, Leon. Really.
So what have I said that would lean towards a child suffering? Like say potty training for an
You're saying
example,
that
right?
it's like survival of the fittest, basically, right? But that's not a good thing. It might be good for the fit ones, but it's not good for the unfit ones, is it? So it's an inherently unfair system, an inherently exploitative system, and an inherently dangerous and cruel system. So that's not something that we
Okay,
should
well, yeah.
support.
I mean, it's not. It depends how you use it. I mean, this sort of thing you can't generalize at all, can you? It's got to be context specific.
You can
And I think
generalize it because no suffering is acceptable. So you don't even need to generalize it. No amount of pleasure can make up for a child being raped to death, right? So it's not a simple thing like that. There's
But
not
no
like a
human being's going to agree with that, right? I mean, no one with any ounce of humanity in them isn't going to be. I think that's different to suggesting that we meet or that actually let nature take its course. I mean, if you
Look,
had an infection, what
if
do
you
you
had an
do?
entire population depending on the rape of a child and just keep raping it, yeah, I'd say that's wrong. Absolutely. They don't need that. It's exploitative, it's cruel, it's unfair, it's unnecessary. So prevention of suffering and safety from
So
suffering.
unnecessary. That's the key word there.
Safety from suffering is necessary, whereas having fun is not necessary. You can do without it, but you can't do without safety from suffering.
But then we have seen also what children grow up to be when they've been coddled all their life, right? They actually turn out to be the type of person to bully into because they haven't been taught the respect and what, right?
Look,
So,
suffering can benefit certain lucky people, but a child getting raped to death isn't benefiting from it, Leon. So they're
well,
not going to
no, as I
be
said, no,
they're not
yeah,
going to
it's
be
all about context.
mollycoddled just because they haven't been raped to death. Okay, they're I mean, thank you for joining us, but yeah, there's no rational or logical or consistent or defensible way to argue that children should be tortured to death. There just isn't one, right? It's cruel, it's wrong, it's stupid, it's evil, and it's also, and this is one of the reasons why it's really obviously wrong, it allows for unlimited suffering, right? So a lot of people seem to think that as long as there's a balance, then unlimited suffering is okay. A child can get tortured to death as long as someone else has a pizza the same day, right? It doesn't work like that. There's no amount of suffering that can be justified by pleasure. There's no amount of pleasure that can justify suffering. Suffering is too terrible and extreme to allow, and it's too terrible and extreme to use as a bargaining chip or, to a stepping stone for pleasure, right? You're stepping on the head of that child to reach higher amounts of pleasure. It's obviously wrong. It's obviously cruel. It's cruel to the children that you're doing it to, and it's just evil. So we need a zero tolerance policy on child abuse and suffering in general. And the people that say, no, let's not have a zero tolerance policy on child abuse, I don't know what to tell you. It's gross, it's wrong, it's cruel, it's stupid. And as long as they keep this mentality of exploitation is acceptable, child abuse is acceptable, then you're always going to have a bad world, an evil world, and a wrong world. There's no morality, there's no ethics, there's no being good in a world where you're saying it's acceptable for children to be tortured. It's totally fine. We don't care. Let them get tortured. So we have to have a zero tolerance policy on suffering, child torture, child abuse, and to say that we should just let it happen so that we can have fun is evil and cruel and wrong. And it's also unnecessary, right? So, I think most people have this kind of stupid idea in their head that it's like a small minority are suffering, so why should we care about them? They're just trying to ruin it for us. Screw the minority. We should focus on the majority and their happiness. But the thing is that the happiness of the majority, which doesn't even exist, by the way, that's not even a real thing. 99.9% of life born on this planet will die a painful death during childhood because we're a drop in the ocean compared to the population of animals. So most life is definitely having a terrible life, but even if it were a minority, it would still be wrong, right? If you have 10 people raping one woman, it doesn't make it okay just because there's 10 people and just one victim. So, a bunch of people ganging up and torturing a child, it's not a defensible system. It's not an okay system, and it's what everyone is advocating for. Well, actually, it's worse than that. What the status quo is effectively, we can have unlimited suffering as long as existence continues. That's currently what we've got. Again, the vast majority of life forced into this world is having a terrible time and a cruel death, a cruel time, a cruel life. So we're not even talking about a minority, we're talking about the majority. So actually, the minority is the lucky ones, the privileged ones, and this minority is condemning the rest to suffer, condemning the innocents to suffer, exploiting them. It's obviously wrong and evil. But even if it was just one, would it still be acceptable? No. No child should be tortured and trapped in a life of torture. People can have fun at their expense. No one should have to suffer. And realistically, that's not a realistic scenario where it's going to be a minority suffering or just one person suffering. So that's like an absolute straw man anyway, right? The people that are arguing for suffering to continue, they are warping it, straw manning the reality to be more comfortable for themselves and their pro-suffering position, which it is. Anyway, I'm going to take a break for a bit. I've been on for like 3 or 4 hours now. I'm going to go get some food. I haven't even eaten today. I'm suffering terribly, guys. Please feel for me. So yeah, follow my channel for more. Am I going to stream again today? Probably not, but maybe tomorrow. I haven't streamed for a while. It's been like a week, but I've had a really great session today. So I'm going to get back into it, do more streaming, get back on the streaming, try and do it like twice a day if I can. In the meantime, check out the videos on my channel and definitely check out our website, proextinction.com. read all about us. We've got the manifesto, the FAQ, the history of the movement, and at the bottom of the page is the button to join our Discord and our WhatsApp. So join the movement, contribute however you can, do activism with us. Really supporting suffering and child abuse. So who's really the bad guy here? It's you. Join the team against suffering, right? How can you be criticizing the movement against suffering without being obviously an evil cartoon character? Anyway, I've got to get off now, guys, so I'll see